Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, and also to welcome to the programme four exciting, talented performers who are going to show their skill with words and language as they speak on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, John Finnemore and Gyles Brandreth. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me sits Haley Sterling. She's going to help me with the score, and she's going to run the stopwatch for me. And we're going to begin the show this week with Paul Merton. Who better? Paul, Halley's Comet. Will you tell us something about Halley's Comet in this show starting now?
Halley's Comet visits the Earth once every 75 years, and Nicholas Parsons has now seen it 6 times. His most favourite occasion was undoubtedly 1672, when he turned to his younger wife and said, "I believe that blazing meteorite across the sky is a constant visitor to our planet, and one day, sometime in the future, it will return as if on some ecclesiastical..."
Giles, yes, you challenge.
Yes, hesitation on the word ecclesiastic.
Oh, yes, right, well done. So you get a point for that, and you take over the subject of Halley's Comet, and there are 34 seconds starting now.
It is widely recognised that Charles Halley introduced an orchestra to the world in 1857, named after him in Manchester. Not so well known is the fact that he had an obsession...
Paul challenge.
A repetition of well known.
Yes, well known.
Didn't I say recognised the first time?
Oh, maybe you did. It was just your intonation is also not well known. Led me to say... I mean, to be honest, I never listened to actually what you say. I pick up clues, but no, you could well be right. I thought you had, but maybe you hadn't.
Incorrect challenge, I'm
Yes,
afraid.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Giles, you get a point for that. Keep the subject, and there are 22 seconds available starting now.
Comet was the name of his pet reindeer. Eventually, he ate this thing at Christmas time, which was uncharitable, given that he was noted as a conductor.
Paul challenge.
We've come a long way from Halley's Comet. We've got Halley's dinner, Halley's Christmas, Halley's eating the reindeer, but not Halley's Comet, so...
Absolutely right, Paul. Correct challenge.
I've explained the reindeer was called Comet.
Yeah, you did.
The reindeer was called Comet, as
I
in
really
Donner
must
and
listen to what
Blitzen
you're
Comet.
saying. It's a huge disadvantage, this.
I was watching your lips move. I wasn't listening to the words, actually. I think you're right,
I know a
actually.
lot of people do watch me with the sound turned down.
I think he's right, actually.
right,
He
yeah,
is
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Well done. No, I'm quite prepared to be corrected. And so you've got the subject still. You've got a point for an incorrect challenge. And you have 10 seconds. Halley's Comet starting now.
It's extraordinary the way this space thing that is known as Halley's Comet...
Paul
Oh, a
challenge.
little bit of hesitation
That
creeping
was
in.
a hesitation. So you've lost it this time, and a point to Paul. And you've got 6 seconds to go, Paul. Halley's Comet starting now.
Let me give to you the exact measurements of Halley's Comet as they were indeed measured back in 19...
In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Paul Merton, and he's now 1 point behind Gyles Brandreth, who's in the lead. The others have yet to speak, but Sheila, now it's your turn to begin, and the subject is Queen of the May. Tell us something about that charming subject in this game, starting now.
Well, I didn't know much about Queen of the May when I was growing up in King's Cross, but then I was evacuated to the country, and they had this extraordinary... Why is nobody
Giles,
buzzing, however?
Giles, you challenge
I
first.
felt there was a touch of hesitation.
Yes, an elongation, which we call a hesitation. Another point to you, Giles, and there are 45 seconds still available. The Queen of the May starting now.
When we think of the great ships of history, such as the Queen Mary, the Marie Celeste, the Titanic, the good ship Venus, we don't always ponder on the Queen of the May. She was the Isle of Wight ferry when I was a child. And I recall the wonderful trips I had from Freshwater back to Portsmouth. Goodness gracious me, we're going on the Queen of the May. Who will be the...
Sheila challenge.
I don't think the ferry went from Freshwater to Portsmouth.
Oh,
It went from Ryde to
before your
Portsmouth.
time, darling.
Nothing is before my time. Nothing. Certainly you aren't.
I think you're right, Sheila. I think it was right. So I'm going to give you the point and for a correct challenge. 21 seconds available. Queen of the May, Sheila, starting now.
When I got to the country, they had this...
John, challenge.
Was there a repetition of country?
Yes, you did say country before. Well, listen, John.
What's
John
your place, young man?
He's in shock, actually, because he suddenly realised he's got a correct challenge for the first time on the show. And so you take over the subject, John, and there are 19 seconds available if you need them. The Queen of the May, starting now.
I'm to be Queen of the May, Mother. Queen of the May is my new title. Those are the words that I spoke to my maternal relative when I learnt that I'd been appointed to this great office and would cavort around a maypole for the delight of my fellow villagers. The fact that I was given this task...
So our virgin player of the game has cut his teeth, and he kept going till the whistle went. There's nothing
I told
funny
you that in
about
strictest confidence, Nicholas.
But, John, you were speaking as the whistle went. You gain an extra point for doing that. You've got 2 points now. Eureka with Paul Merton in second place. And, John, it's your turn to begin. And the subject is carbon dating. Ooh, it's a tough subject, isn't it? And you have 60 seconds if you need it, starting now.
It's so frustrating when you have a chunk of carbon and no idea how old it is. Perhaps it is your favourite pencil and you wish to celebrate its birthday, but when does that anniversary fall? It's impossible to tell. Well, not anymore, because carbon dating is here to help. Simply put your carboniferous friend into a little box, press a button, and the exact date of birth will flash up on the screen. Now, this is nonsense.
Yeah, there's nothing in the rules which says you can't talk nonsense if you want to. And you kept going for 32 seconds, but Paul, you challenged first.
Well, there was a bit of a hesitation, but also breathe.
Breathe. There was something.
Anyway, Paul, correct challenge. You have a point. There are 28 seconds available. Carbon dating starting now.
As we looked at the footprint that we found in the attic, our eyes exchanged glances between each other. My grandfather looked towards grandmother.
Gyles challenge.
Repetition of looked.
Oh, yes. Looked in the attic. Oh. That emotional mood of recognition that sweeps around the audience. So, Gyles, a correct challenge. 20 seconds available. Carbon dating starting now.
Carbon dating is an interesting modern practice where you find romance with somebody who looks almost like the person you really want to be having a relationship with. It's a bit disappointing when it happens to me, because I go out thinking I'm going to be with Helen of Troy, and it turns out to be Maisie from number 3 Railway Cuttings. Nonetheless, as I have...
So Gyles Brandreth was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and he's increased his lead at the end of the round over Paul Merton and John Finnemore and Sheila Hancock in that order. And Gyles went with you now to begin. Keeping cool. That's the subject. Keeping cool, Gyles. 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
Keeping cool can be quite challenging. It means keeping calm. And the other day, when I received a letter inviting me to be the new face of the Stanner stairlift, I have to say, keeping my cool was a remarkably difficult thing to achieve. I called them up and said, "Have you thought of Nigel Havers?" It turned out they had. Keeping my cool then became near impossible. I have to tell you that I am now on beta blockers, because keeping cool is so difficult for me. On a day like today, taking part in Just a Minute, keeping cool becomes near impossible. But I have been trained.
John challenge.
Repetition.
Of what?
Impossible. Impossible.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Well, listen. So, John Finnemore, who's sitting next to Gyles.
That's the way you want to play, is it, John?
No.
I see.
I want to play it in a nice, friendly way.
So, John, well done. Another point to you, and 25 seconds still available. Keeping cool starting now.
Frozen grapes I find very useful for keeping cool in the summer, either as substitutes for ice cubes or simply slipped down the neck of a friend. Keeping cool is the struggle to...
Sheila Hancock challenge.
I don't understand that. Can you explain this putting grapes down you?
You just... Oh, no, that was just a joke. But frozen grapes... Frozen grapes are lovely. If you put them in the fridge, they are a really nice snack. And you can use them as ice cubes, as I say.
So what was your challenge, Sheila? Hesitation?
Nothing.
Well, he did hesitate.
I actually wanted to know what he did with his grapes.
He sticks them in the fridge and he puts them down a friend's throat.
Yeah, well, there you go.
So, Sheila...
Deviation, I would think.
No. Incorrect challenge, John. So you got a point for that. Well done. And there are 13 seconds still available if you want them. Keeping cool starting now.
Fans are very useful for keeping cool. Indeed, you could say that's the whole point of the little devices. Without keeping cool, there would be no need for them to exist. Also, air conditioning, that's a plus. But the best...
So John Finnemore was then speaking as the whistle went, gained the extra point. He's moved forward. He's one behind our leader, Gyles, Brandreth, and just ahead of Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. Travelling by coach. I don't know whether you do it very much, but tell us... Oh, I know you do when you're on your tour, don't you? Yes. You've got a custom-built coach there. Tell us something about that or any other coach, starting now.
I used to do a lot of travelling by coach in the late 1960s. Mystery trips would be advertised from Morton, end of the Northern Line, and you would climb on the coach, and quite often you would find that your mysterious destination was Bognor Regis, or Littlehampton, perhaps, and these were within easy drive of where we were in South London. Coach trips...
Giles challenge.
I thought we were in North London.
He lived in South London.
End of the Northern Line.
Oh, it's the southern end of the Northern
Yes,
Line. I'm so sorry. I must get out more often.
They experimented with two northern ends, but it didn't take off, really.
Well, there are two ends to most things, Giles.
Not the Circle Line.
Anyway, an incorrect challenge, Paul, so you have another point, and 40 seconds, travelling by coach starting now.
Nicholas was quite right earlier when he suggested that when I tour around with the Impro chums, we do travel by coach, and it's a very good way of getting around because you don't have to rely on a train.
Sheila Hancock challenge.
Was that 2 rounds?
Yes, you do. You travelled around, right. Sheila, correct challenge, a point, of course, and 30 seconds still available. Travelling by coach starting now.
Cinderella had a very nice coach, except that it was drawn by mice. They changed into horses, so in the end it was a happy thing. The Queen has a golden coach. I remember during the coronation seeing her with all her jewels and everything. It was divine. And there was that lady, Queen something, in an...
Giles challenge.
Point of information, I wanted to continue Salote.
That's right.
But carry on, I'm loving the story.
Thank you.
I think a lot of us knew that, but we didn't want to show off like you did.
I researched it, you remembered it. There's the difference.
That's very nice.
I'll add something to it, and she was wonderful at that coronation because she sat in an open coach with an umbrella up, and she got absolutely drenched, but she was so loyal, she wouldn't put it down.
Tell the story. I've told the story. No, she's getting to the story.
I've got more to say.
It's a very funny story.
You say it, Nick, or I want you to say it.
All right. Well, you can repeat it if you want to, Diane.
How long have I got?
You've got 8 seconds.
How long?
8. Only 8. You're all right. You've got another point. 8 seconds. Travelling by coach starting now.
And what is more, there was a little man sitting next to her, and Noel Coward said it was her lunch, which was a pretty odd thing to say.
So, Sheila Hancock, speaking as a whistle when, gained that extra point, is equal with Paul Merton, and 1 point behind John Finnemore and 2 behind Gyles Brandreth, who's in the lead. And Sheila, we're back with you to begin. Interesting subject, the shipping forecast. Talk about the shipping forecast in this game, if you can, starting now.
The shipping forecast is one of those institutions that everybody adores. It starts with that miserable song, Sailing Away, which people have tried to change at the British Broadcasting Company, but Radio 4 listeners won't allow that, or stopping singing God Save the Queen after the shipping forecast. It is a divine thing, lying in bed, thinking of people bobbing around in our maritime country, listening to their radios in Cromarty,
Oh, yes. You challenged first.
It was a hesitation.
It was a hesitation, yes. 25 seconds are still available. Paul, you have the shipping forecast starting now.
As myself and Captain Watson grappled within the bellies of the nuclear submarine, we listened to the shipping forecast. As long as Radio 4 was broadcasting, we knew that our country was safe. The Ruskies hadn't bombed us after all. Suddenly, my superior looked towards me. He blew me a kiss. I removed the cocktail dress I was wearing. Met across a map of the Sahara. Suddenly we realised something. We were both in love, and we didn't care who knew it.
Paul, the picture you paint was so surreal and delightful. I'm glad you kept going to the whistle when to gain that extra point, and you're now equal in the lead with Gyles. And John Finnemore, it's your turn to begin. Real ale. I don't know whether you drink it, but tell us something about it in this game, starting now.
Real ale has an unfair reputation of being enjoyed only by large, jolly men with beards and sweaters who say things...
Sheila challenge.
I don't think that's true. I think that's inaccurate. Inspector Morse wasn't a large, jolly man in a sweater.
I would say it was an unfair reputation.
No, I mean, Sheila, that's quite an interesting challenge. And you do know a bit about Inspector Morse, of course. 51 seconds available, Sheila. Real ale, starting now.
The sad fact was that the actor playing that part simply loathed beer and nearly choked every time he had to drink it. I grew up in pubs because that's where my father worked, and I remember there was immense cellar work to be done on real ale, fiddling around with thermometers and tapping the top and the bottom and the corks, and then piping it up to the pumps. And then this froth on the top of the glass was the important thing. It had to be exactly right, and the temperature exactly.
John, you listen well, and you got in first.
Repetition.
Yes, but what of?
Exactly.
Yes, of course. I mean, I heard it, but...
Oh, I see, but you need me to say it. Fair enough. I can see how it would be easy to cheat otherwise. Yeah.
So, John, 16 seconds still available. Real ale, starting now.
It is, of course, far preferable to imaginary ale, which is terribly disappointing and nothing like the real stuff. I actually quite enjoy it, especially ones with gold or amber in the title. They tend to be a bit lighter and more gentle on the tongue and palate of my mouth.
So, John Finnemore, speaking as a whistle went, and our virgin player of the game has now taken the lead.
Wow.
One ahead of the other three. And Gyles, it's your turn to begin. The subject, spaghetti westerns. Tell us something about spaghetti westerns in this game, starting now.
The spaghetti western is, I believe, in Japan called the macaroni western. Associated initially with the great Clint Eastwood, when A Fistful of Dollars came out in 1964, it changed my life. On went the poncho and the hat, out came my guns, and a virile youth was born. Muscular, exciting, I joined one gang and then another. I paraded through...
Paul challenge.
Is delusion something I can challenge for? When it's of such a grand scale.
Yeah. I mean, the image he's painting, you think is completely devious.
Well, it's Zorro, isn't it?
I can't imagine you like that, I'm afraid.
Ah, this is your limited imagination. Because others can. I'm really going to talk about...
I'll ask the audience. Can you imagine Giles Brandreth like that? Giles,
no wonder you lost your last general election.
Giles, you have the endorsement of the audience here, so you keep the subject and a point, of course. 34 seconds still available. Spaghetti westerns starting now.
I agree that it was a mistake during my last electoral campaign to appear as a character from Django. I did not feel that this was becoming in somebody supporting the kind of policies I was in favour of. But I was determined that the spirit of the spaghetti western should infect
Sheila
my...
challenge.
Well, there was a hesitation. I was determined.
I was giving my Churchillian flourish.
I think it was enough. to be a hesitation. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Sheila, and say that you have 17 seconds still available on spaghetti westerns starting now.
I know nothing about spaghetti rest.
Paul, challenge.
Well, you've got slightly less time to talk about it now.
So what's your challenge within the rules?
Just give Sheila less time to talk about spaghetti
Thank
western.
We're working as a team here.
Well, Paul, she was still actually speaking when you pressed your buzzer, so I can't take it away from her, really, can I?
No.
I get an extra point for a wrong interruption.
No, you just get a point because you were interrupted, man.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
That's all right.
And you keep the subject. 14 seconds available. Spaghetti westerns starting now.
Well, I sit in front of the television watching westerns, eating a lovely spaghetti bolognese. And that is my idea of a perfect spaghetti western. However, that is...
So Sheila Hancock was then speaking as the whistle went. And she's moved forward, and she's now 1 point ahead of all the other three. Sheila, we're back with you to begin. Answering the telephone. Tell us something about that straightforward subject in this game, starting now.
Answering the telephone brings up a picture of my mother. When we first had a telephone, it was kept in the hall, and nobody was allowed to use it. And if it rang, my mother was terrified.
Oh, John,
God.
challenge, yes.
Repetition.
Yeah.
Yes, I have to ask you, Justin.
Yes, I know. And I was just feeling guilty for stopping the story, but it is repetition of mother.
No, that is a game, actually,
Yes,
John.
yes.
And you have a correct challenge, my mother, and 47 seconds are available for you, John, on answering the telephone starting now.
Answering the telephone used to be a lot more fun in the old days in black and white movies where George Sanders or Basil Rathbone would snatch up the instrument and bark, Mayfair, 1, 2, 3, and that's all you needed to say. And hello.
Gyles, challenge.
She's doing so well. There was never a number 1, 2, 3. When there were numbers with names before, it was always 4 digits following. So it'll have been Mayfair 1, 2, 3, 4, Mayfair 2, 3, 4, 1.
I didn't say you got connected.
So
Wrong number, caller. I agree. He gets a point.
I think he's justified it, don't you?
He's more than justified it.
So a point to you, John Finnemore.
I wish I'd
Incorrect
reversed
challenge.
the charges.
Answering the telephone, 31 seconds starting now.
I believe historically there was a bit of a problem about what to say when answering the very first telephones, and Alexander Graham Bell himself suggested we should all announce ahoy hoy when picking up the telephone.
Oh, Sheila challenge.
Repetition.
Of hoy.
But it's ahoy hoy. The first was ahoy. I didn't do that deliberately, I promise, but it is.
I think you're struggling now. You didn't say, I heard ahoy hoy.
Yes, that's not repetition then, is it?
No,
But are you trying to say that you actually did ahoy hoy?
It was ahoy, A-H-O-Y,
I know, yes.
and then a dash, and then H-O-Y. So traditionally...
I know, Gyles, that's what I got.
As soon as I saw the subject was answering the telephone, I thought, this is going to be trouble.
No, I think it was how it sounded. It did sound like a repetition of hoy hoy. And... All right, I listened to the audience before. I listened to them again. All right. John Finnemore, you have another point and 17 seconds answering the telephone starting now.
Whereas, of course, now we say hello, 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 hello.
Sheila, you've gone incorrectly that time. I think I know what the repetition was. And there are 14 seconds for you, Sheila, answering the telephone starting now.
People in shops never answer the telephone. I was trying to find some curd cheese last week, and I phoned Harrods, John Lewis, all the places that I thought might have it. And I got through to customer service.
So, Sheila Hancock, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and we're moving into the final round. Let me give you the score as we move into the final round. Very interesting. Our one-time regular winner of the game, Paul Merton, is trailing in second place, but he's only 3 points behind 3 people who are equal in the lead. Sheila Hancock, John Finnemore, and Gyles Brandreth. And John Finnemore, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is Cat's Cradle. Tell us something about that interesting subject in this game, starting now.
My cat Boots has terrible trouble getting to sleep. He suffers from feline insomnia, a little understood condition, and that is why I have constructed for him a cradle out of a shoebox and the curved bits on 2 wooden coat hangers, and now I rock him to sleep, happily purring, both of us, him and I, simply loving this new invention, which I would like you to invest in. Now, I will offer you 1% of my Cat's Cradle company for $100 million and pounds. Let's roll out the Cat's Cradle across this nation and make every feline animal...
And you kept going for 41 seconds. Oh, right. But Gyles, you challenged first. What was it?
It was, I'm afraid, a repetition of feline.
Yes, it was indeed, yes. So, Gyles, you got a point. 19 seconds are still available, Gyles. Cat's Cradle starting now.
Cat's Cradle was a favourite game of Nanny's. We lived in Kensington where I was a child, where a crash, of course, is what happens where 2 cars collide, and sex is what comes when the potatoes are brought to us. But the Cat's Cradle, Nanny and I would...
No! Oh, yes.
No!
The return of Nanny.
I can't get it out of my mind.
Yes. Right. 3 seconds available, Paul, on Cat's Cradle starting now.
Cat's Cradle is a very good novel written by Kurt Vonnegut, and
So, Paul Merton speaking as Whistlewing gained that extra point, and it's a very interesting final round at the end. It goes in this sequence, 1 point separating them all in ascending order. Paul Merton, 1 point ahead. Sheila Hancock, 1 point ahead. Sean Finnemore, 1 point ahead. Gyles Brandreth. So we say, Gyles, you are the winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Sheila Hancock, John Finnemore and Gyles Brandreth. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score. She's blown her whistle with such a plum every time. We're indebted to our producer, Victoria Lloyd, and we're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. So from him, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and this audience here, goodbye, and tune in again the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello, my name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to play Just a Minute. And I'm going to ask them at different times to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will show off their skill with words and language as they speak without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those 4 are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Josie Lawrence, and seated on my left, Graham Norton and Alexei Sayle. Please welcome all 4 of them. It's Hayley Sterling. And she's going to help me with the score. She's going to run the stopwatch and blow a whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. Graham Norton, it's lovely to have you back. And so we'll start off the show, very apt, clock watching. Will you tell us something about clock watching in this game starting now?
Well, that's very nearly something I've done a lot of. But clock watching itself, I've only really done the once, and that was when I worked in an office very briefly. And those of you who do that thing will know how intense the clock watching can be. Because you arrive, and by 11:30, you're sort of thinking, well, I have my sandwiches now, and then you've had your lunch, but it's only about 25 to 12, and it's an awfully long afternoon of instant coffee making, shuffling papers, hiding in the toilet for an hour, walking up and down a corridor. It was hell when I worked in that place that begins with an O, which I cannot repeat because I've said it once, and those are the rules of this game, ladies and gentlemen. In this particular pastime...
Right. Josie, you've challenged.
Particular twice, I'm afraid.
Particular, yes. You did say particular
yes.
before, yes.
Did I? I don't know.
I think so.
So that's right, Josie. A correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course. And you take over the subject of clock watching, starting now.
I went to a place in Amsterdam once, and clock watching was an absolute joy because it was cuckoo clocks, and they all came out at the same time. And I bought one, but it was actually a train and not that bird that makes that.
And again, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. And on this occasion was Josie Lawrence. And Josie, you're the only one to have scored after the end of the first round. And we move on to Alexei Sayle. Welcome to the show, Alexei.
Thank you.
First visit, a virgin player of the game. And we've got for you now, on your bike. Can you tell us something about that subject? Oh, you want to write it down, right?
Yes, all right.
On your
you said
bike?
I could write it down.
You can write it down, yeah.
Oh, okay then.
Don't try and drag me into it. He said.
I do everything you tell me to, Graham.
So you have 60 seconds if you need it, Alexei, on your bike, starting now.
Despite my appearance, I am a very keen and energetic cyclist. At one time, I owned 9 of those machines, which made storage quite a problem. But anyway, what I do is I get on my finely tuned racing machine made out of rare metals, some of which have come from an asteroid. You think it would be easier if I just ate one less pork pie. But instead, I pay thousands and thousands of pounds.
It's so easy to slip into the unusual grammatical phrases. So, Josie, you challenge first.
Thousands.
Yes, repetition of thousands. So, Josie, you've got another point. You've got in with 28 seconds to go on your bike, starting now.
You know, it's considered very rude when you give somebody an opinion and they say, oh, on your bike, go away. But if you're actually standing next to a bike, then that's all right, because you can get on it and depart. I don't have a bike apart from an exercise bike and a personal trainer that I've recently had on board called David, who's gorgeous. I don't want him to get on his bike. I want him to stay in...
Oh, Paul, you've challenged.
Repetition of I want him.
Yes.
If he's listening, yes.
Well, Paul, that's a correct challenge.
Yes.
And you've got in with 2 seconds on your bike, starting now.
My first bike was a
Speaking of the whistle, when gained that extra point, and he's now catching up on Josie Lawrence, who's in the lead. Alexei and Graham have yet to score, and Josie, we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject, insomnia. 60 seconds, starting now.
I suppose most of us suffer from insomnia at some point in our lives. Usually for me, it's when I'm worrying. Or sometimes I'm afraid that I'm going to sleep over the alarm, so therefore I don't kip off at all. Now, when I just said that word or phrase, it meant going to La La Land, which... La La's all one word.
No, it isn't, I'm afraid. It's Hancock. So, Paul...
A repetition of la, sadly.
Yes. Yeah, I think we've spotted that one, Paul.
Yes.
Well done. So we have a correct challenge. There are 39 seconds still available. Insomnia, starting now.
There's various pieces of advice that are offered to people who suffer from insomnia. Don't watch television before you go to bed. Have a bath. Drink hot milk if that's something that you like. These are the sort of practical aspects that people can adopt to try and cure themselves of the curse of insomnia. If you...
Graham, challenge.
I think there was a repetition of cure.
Oh, yes. Well
do
done.
two
Correct challenge, Graham. Insomnia, starting now.
Insomnia appears to be a modern curse, and demands for cures are increasing all the time. In unrelated news, sales of Nicholas's autobiography were much bigger than expected. I cannot explain why, and won't...
Paul, you challenge.
Hesitation.
There was, in
Yes,
fairness,
a full stop
Very
there.
so.
So, Paul, you've got him with 7 seconds to go on Insomnia, with another point, of course, starting now.
As I lay there on the back of my neck, I saw coming towards me the biggest polar bear that Leamington Spa.
So Paul Merton again, speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point and has increased his lead at the end of the round. And Paul, we're with you to begin. The last straw. That's an interesting phrase. Talk about it in this game if you can, starting now.
The last straw. I wonder if this is also the straw that broke the camel back. That seems to be the last straw as well. In an Abbott and Costello film, they are taking a bunch of straw hats to a company called the Susquehanna Hat Company. Hats and
Josie
hats.
challenge.
Hats and hats.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
You
hats
said
and
hats
hats.
and hats.
Hats and hats,
I
yes.
apologise.
No, don't
Apologise, hats
apologise,
and
my
hats.
love. We enjoy your keenness. But an incorrect challenge. So Paul gets a point. He has 47 seconds still available. The last straw starting now.
As I unpacked that year's Christmas nativity scene, I saw just behind the donkey the last straw that my mother had gathered from the... I don't know what I'm talking about. I was going to say gathered from the highlands of Tibet. I've got no idea what I'm talking about. She's never been to Tibet.
Hesitation.
Absolutely.
No idea what he was talking about.
I had a sudden moment of self-realisation.
You went
So
into a different plane, didn't you,
I
Paul?
certainly did.
Yeah, right. So that time it was hesitation, right?
Yeah.
So the last straw is with you, Josie. You've got another point. You have 37 seconds, starting now.
Now, I have no idea where the last straw comes from, but oldie-worldy times, you used to put a load of straw on the floor in winter to walk on because, of course, you couldn't afford a carpet. That little bit of trivia here is where the term threshold comes from, stopping the straw from leaving the building. So perhaps by the end of the winter, there was only one straw left. Amos, look, that's the last...
Graham, you challenged.
This is the ramblings of a madwoman.
It's true.
Considering your challenge on me was I'd lost it, otherwise I'd be rich.
Well, I don't think she's mad, but you can ramble in this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she wasn't talking about the last... deviation. She was talking about... she wasn't talking about the last straw. She was talking about straw as a general thing.
I'm going to give you the point, and you say that you have 7 seconds, the last straw, starting now.
When I worked in catering, the last straw was officially known as Code Red. Unlike the last ice cube.
So, when Norton, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, he's moved forward. He's in third place. He's just 1 point behind Josie Lawrence, who's 2 points behind Paul Merton. Alexei Sayle is yet to score, but he's new to the game. And Graham, it's your turn to begin. The subject, missing the boat. We're getting a lot of phrases in this show, aren't we?
Yes.
So missing the boat is the subject. 60 seconds, of course, starting now.
Every summer, I load my car with my 2 dogs and a lot of winter clothes and head to Ireland. Now, the ferry takes me there. I leave myself lots of time, and when I get to Cardiff, just over that big bridge that you have to pay to get into, but it's free to leave, I then think, well, I'm nearly there because I'm in Wales. Who knew that country is so wide? It's really fat along the bottom, like a lot of its population. And the place where the car ferry, maybe said that before.
Repetition of ferry, I'm afraid.
Yes, that's right. So, Josie, correct challenge. Another point to you. 26 seconds available. Missing the boat, starting now.
You know, I had quite an adventure once where I did miss a boat, but I also caught it. Let me explain. I was on a cargo ship going over the Atlantic, and I had to catch a yacht to get me to Plymouth. But the two weren't coinciding. So these lovely men that worked there taught me how to climb down a rope ladder as this huge boat.
Paul challenges.
Sadly, hesitation.
Yeah. Between
Paul.
huge and boat.
Yeah.
I know.
Perhaps you change your mind as to what you're going to say at the last moment.
This is the irony of this game. You've got him with 1 second to go. No, but those are the rules, and well done, Paul. And you've got 1 second. You tell us something about missing the boat, starting now.
The Titanic sails at dawn.
So Paul Merton is speaking to Whistle Wen, gained that extra point and has increased his lead at the end of the round. Alexei, Sayle, we're back with you to begin. We're getting a lot of phrases in this show, and we've got one now, a hot potato.
A hot potato?
Yes. Do you want to write it down or not?
Yeah. I'll do a drawing of it.
No, we haven't got time for that. Anyway, it's not very good radio. Alexei, a hot potato starting now.
And I'm sitting there and I thought before I came on the show that it was really easy, and then I'm sitting there because I can't interrupt or anything because I've gone deaf because I'm all confused.
Alexei,
and
don't worry.
And they said you'd be nice to me, Nicholas.
I am going to be nice to you
nice
now because that was the correct challenge, but I'm not going to allow it.
Yes. Thank you.
But I think Graham challenged first, so you should give Graham a point for that because that was a correct challenge, but I'm not going to allow it. So Alexei, you get a point.
Thank you, Nicholas. I don't think I've ever had the sympathy of an audience before.
So there are still 59 seconds available. Alexei.
Do it in stages. Do the minute in stages.
This is like a dream, nightmare, yeah.
Do you suffer from insomnia too?
I will. I'm suffering from screaming nightmares, I think, tonight.
Right.
I'll wake up in the middle of... I dreamt I was on a radio show and people were talking mad stuff. And I had to say something, but I couldn't think of anything to say. See, I'm talking quite a lot now when it isn't my turn. Anyway.
It is your turn.
Oh, it is my turn.
And you've still got 59 seconds.
Oh, thank you.
And it's a hot potato starting now.
I find in this show very difficult. So one of the things I thought I might do is to default to something that is really in my wheelhouse, which is perhaps that I will just issue obscenities for 60 seconds. Now, the problem with that would be a hot potato for the BBC, and that would be a problem.
Josie challenge.
Sorry,
BBC, you see. It's one of the errors you can slip into. Repetition of B.
Letters. You can't even repeat letters.
You know. That one got me.
This is like North Korean torture.
In the end, you will tell us everything you know.
Things you don't know.
So, Josie, yes, correct challenge, B. So, 36 seconds available. A hot potato starting now.
Now, you know, I've got a thing about microwaves. The only two I've ever owned I gave away to ex-boyfriends. They thought I was being generous, but I wasn't. They are terrible machines, and I put a potato in there once, not knowing how to use the blooming horrible monstrosity, and I knew it only had to be a few minutes, so I put it on for 20 minutes. And when I opened... Yes. Yes.
Alexei, you challenged.
No, it was great. Can I have it, though?
Yes, I didn't touch it. I didn't touch it.
Oh, well, was it me? Yeah, all right.
Yes,
Repetition of minutes?
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Okay.
So you've got another point, Alexei, and you've 12 seconds. A hot potato starting now.
A hot potato is also a baked potato. And the first time I encountered this object was in Edinburgh, I think, in 1980. And I thought, oh, there's something in this, because if Scottish people are paying 70...
Right. So Alexei Sayle was then speaker as a whistle when gained that extra point. He has moved forward. He's 1 point behind Graham Norton, and he's 2 behind Josie Lawrence and 3 behind Paul Merton. That's the sequence in ascending order. And Josie, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now is Alexander Graham Bell. 60 seconds in this game, starting now.
I've always loved that name, Alexander Graham Bell. It has a nice ring to it. And, of course, he's known for possibly inventing the telephone, although some people dispute that fact. I remember as a child reading a wonderful quote from him. When you go into the woods, stray from the path that's known, into the trees, and you will discover wonderful things. He was an amazing inventor, and if you look at his photograph, he looks rather like Santa Claus, or indeed, lovely Alexei Sayle. You could play him in a film. He was famously quoted as saying, "Watson, come here, I need to see you." That was the first time...
Paul challenge.
Come here, Watson, I need you.
All right. Does it
Well, you
matter?
said famously.
And I need to see. Oh,
no,
you are being
So you're having him for deviation because
Deviation from
she
what he
Alex,
misquoted.
while we're talking, that advice was terrible. Do not wander off the path in woods. That's...
He wants to discover things. Discover
Oh, you
new
will.
things.
You will.
And it won't just be a phone box either.
So, Paul, you have the benefit of the doubt. You have 14 seconds. You tell us something about Alexander Graham Bell, starting now.
Alexander Graham Bell's father was a right misery. He used to go home every night and say to his son, "You'll never amount to anything. Look at you. You couldn't even get a job at a telephone exchange." His son pointed out that this instrument had yet been invented, and so Papa looked him in the eyes.
So Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point and it's increased his lead at the end of the round. And Graham, we're back with you to begin. Buttons. Will you tell us something about buttons in this game, starting now?
Buttons are things on your clothes, aren't they, ladies and gentlemen? Let's talk about them for a minute. So, I first encountered buttons when I was wearing an adorable little onesie as a baby. The buttons came up from one ankle all the way along my thigh, across my crotch area, and down the other side. I, of course, was incapable of doing up or undoing said buttons because I think I mentioned I was an infant. My mother would do that with her nimble Irish fingers. They were clean to a fault. Now, buttons became a more practical part of my life, I suppose, as I became older and owned a cardigan. Then, in a radical move, the Starsky and Hutch one came along that just had a knitted belt. Où est les bâtons? I would say to my mother. I was quite a pretentious teenager.
So Graham Norton started with the subject and finished with the subject. He went for a full 60 seconds without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. You were not interrupted, so you get a point for speaking as the whistle went and a bonus point for not being interrupted.
Wow.
And you have moved forward, and you are still in third place. And just ahead of Alexei Sayle, who begins the next round. Alexei, the subject now is a birthday treat. You want to write it down? Okay.
Yeah.
A birthday treat. Have 60 seconds, starting now.
For me, a birthday treat would be to go to an all-you-can-eat buffet. Amongst the things that appear on the heated trays there are noodles, samosas, satay, rice, chicken wings, sweet and sour pork.
Alexei, that's the thing you... It's the sort of thing you can't dry yourself up in this show. Keep going. But I'm glad you enjoyed your joke. But Paul Merton, you challenged?
Well, it was hesitation, sadly.
Yeah. And he burst into laughter.
I was just embarrassed about how many things I knew that came on an all-you-can-eat buffet.
Paul, yes, correct challenge. 41 seconds, a birthday treat starting now.
On Nicholas Parsons' 21st birthday, his parents unveiled a cave painting, and he was... There he was, dressed in a tuxedo, throwing spears at a buffalo. And this painting was recently rediscovered by Spanish explorers.
Alex.
Repetition of painting.
Yeah.
I'll say one thing, Alexei, you've got this audience on your side.
Thank you.
A correct challenge, and you have 27 seconds still available. A birthday treat starting now.
For me, a birthday treat would be to go and see a recording of Just a Minute. It would be the most fantastic experience. I would see both old comedians, wizened and bald, but also comedians... I'm doing it again.
So, Paul, you challenged
Well, it was
first.
repetition of comedians.
Yes, there was.
Yes.
Paul, 12 seconds, a birthday treat with you starting now.
Birthday treats are sometimes the ones that are the least expected, perhaps on a day when it's not your birthday. But I remember when one happened to me, I was 25, living in a bedsit in Streatham Hill, looking out the window.
So at the end of that round, Paul Merton, speaking of the whistle, gained an extra point and has increased his lead at the end of the round. And Josie Lawrence, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is Cardigan Bay. Nice geographical subject. Can you tell us something about it in this game, starting now?
Well, I'm from the West Midlands and have what you'd call a black country accent, so I can say Cardigan Bay without it meaning the location, as in, ooh, that cardigan bay off lovely. Or a double whammy with the word bay by, oh, Cardigan Bay.
Yeah. Oh, Alexei, you've challenged. She did repeat "or," didn't she?
Yeah, you repeated "or," yeah.
Oh, you kept on saying all this and all that, right. So well listened, Alexei.
Thank
Yes.
I'm your favourite, aren't I?
And,
You are his favourite.
and there are
I
still...
always go, being a communist, I always go for the authority figure. That's what we suck up to.
I didn't know you were a communist.
Did you
Really?
leave?
Have you not followed the last 30 years of modern comedy?
Yes, I
My
have.
Marxist stylings?
Of course I have. But,
I'm not really.
But you're the first communist we've had on the show. That's the reason I said that. Probably the
Thank you,
last
no.
as well.
Though Stalin did one Edinburgh, do you remember? Wasn't great.
He shot the audience when they did that.
Yeah. And we had Gulag as a subject.
He made
and-
you swallow the whistle, do you remember?
That's right, yeah. Anyway, you listen. You've got the subject. You've got 40 seconds, Alexei, on Cardigan Bay, starting now.
Cardigan Bay is a geographical feature which is made entirely from knitwear. There's cliffs of cotton and trees.
Josie.
A hesitation.
Yes, you've got it back again, my darling. So you've got 29 seconds. Tell us more about Cardigan Bay, starting now.
It is a very beautiful Welsh coastline. I remember going to holiday camp, a caravan park, in fact.
Graham challenged.
Was that hesitation?
No, it's not really. She corrected herself.
Yes, yes.
I think
I'm
she
sorry.
did it
I'm so
within-
sorry.
Right, Josie, an incorrect challenge. Another point to you. 23 seconds. Cardigan Bay, starting now.
New Quay was where we used to go for our particular vacation. But little do people know that there is a huge cardigan in Cardigan Bay, in an art gallery there. There's also wonderful marine life, jagged cliffs, stormy seas, and sandy...
Oh, yes, you challenged.
hesitation,
Oh, of course
sadly.
there
Definite
was.
hesitation, yes.
I didn't breathe.
No.
And there's still 3 seconds available, Paul. 3 seconds on Cardigan Bay, Paul, starting now.
Cardigan Bay is a place I'll never...
So another point to Paul Merton as the whistle went, and I've just had a message that we are moving in to the final round. Let me give you the score. Alexei Sayle has not played the game before, is doing extraordinarily well. He's in 4th place, but he's still doing extraordinarily well. He's just 1 point behind, that's all, Graham Norton. And Graham's a few points behind Josie Lawrence, who is also 3 or 4 points behind Paul Merton, who begins the next round. Paul, the subject is how to spot a liar. Can you tell us something about that in this game starting now?
How to spot a liar? I suppose a gifted liar would be harder to spot. You would be looking at people's hands sweating, perhaps they're not meeting your gaze, or changing the subject at the last moment. But I don't know what other telltale signs there would be to spot a liar. Perhaps it was once said about...
Josie Challenge.
Repetition of perhaps.
Yes. So, Josie, you've got in with 43 seconds still available. How to spot a liar starting now.
They say that a liar can't make eye contact and blinks a lot, and also goes slightly red just around the neck area here. It's very easy to spot my friend because she can't lie, especially when she's been to see someone in a play or a show. I usually have to tell her to say, well done, but she can't. She stutters and...
Graham Challenge.
Repetition of can't.
Yes,
Yes.
You can't.
Can't.
Yes, quite.
So, Graham, we're going to hear from you on this subject. 21 seconds are still available. You tell us something about how to spot a liar starting now.
Sometimes people say things like, I'm happily married, and I go, bingo, spotted you straight away. Because those sorts of things are rarely true. Let's face it. Occasionally they are for maybe an afternoon while you're on holiday. But in general, that would be a lie, I would say. I'm being single myself. I cling to that as a hope.
So Graham Norton, speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point, brought this round to an end, and also the show to an end with a delightful flourish. If you're interested in the points, the final score is Alexei Sayle finished in a very good fourth place. He was only 2 points behind Graham Norton in third, and Graham won last time he was with us, and he was 2 points behind Josie Lawrence, who was also... she was 4 points behind our leader, Paul Merton. So we say, Paul, you are the winner this week. So, we're going to arrange to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Josie Lawrence, Alexei Sayle and Graham Norton. We're grateful to our producer, Victoria Lloyd. I'm indebted to Haley Sterling, who's helped me with the score. And we're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. So from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the audience, goodbye. Tune in again at the same time when we play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Thank you. Hello. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic performers who are going to show their skill with language and words as they try and speak on the subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Sheila Hancock, and seated on my left, John Finnemore and Gyles Brandreth. Please welcome all 4 of them. Behind me sits Haley Sterling. And she's going to help me with the score. She's going to blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Gyles Brandreth. Oh, Gyles, a very pompous subject, but I'm sure you can talk on it. Nothing personal in that, dear Gyles. It's in your area of knowledge and background.
Thank you.
Saving graces. 60 seconds starting now.
Saving graces, for what we are about to receive, may the Lord make us truly thankful. It's one of the graces I would like to save. Benedictus, bend your kneecaps, sit down and get on with it, was the grace we tried to save at school. But I think, given your introduction, Nicholas, you probably had in mind the 3 graces. The wonderful sculpture by Antonio Canova, which was saved for the nation by myself and colleagues in 1994, when I was at the Department of National Heritage and Culture. And the Duke of Bedford's wonderful piece of art was due to be sold to a foreign...
I thought you'd challenge
Just got to stop him somehow. Descending into gross self-parody.
Yeah. So what's your challenge? Showing off?
Yeah, show it off.
Excuse me. I was encouraged in this by the chairman with his introduction.
Oh, don't listen to him. He encouraged Eve to take the apple. Don't take the apple. Look it up. Google it.
I don't know what your challenge is, but we'll give you a bonus point for what you just said, Paul. But what is your challenge within the rules of just a minute?
Incoherent. It was sounded like a speech from the previous mayor of London. I couldn't understand what he was saying.
I know what you mean and how we all feel, but I'm afraid within the rules of just a minute, he was not guilty.
To be fair, what Nicholas is saying is he can't help it. He can't help it. That's fair, he can't help it.
So within the rules of just a minute, Gyles, I can't give it against you. So you keep the subject, and you have 21 seconds still available, saving grace... And try and calm it down just a bit now. Saving graces starting now.
Happily, one of my saving graces is I don't mind about not winning. I'm not a competitive person. I take things as they come. But I'm pleased to tell you that the wonderful 3 graces...
Well, there was a hesitation.
Yeah, there was.
Definitely hesitation.
And a repetition of 3.
Yeah, and I would have had you for deviation when you said I'm not a competitive person. Paul, the correct challenge. 9 seconds still available. Saving graces starting now.
Grace was late for dinner. As we looked out of the window, we could see her coming across the field. The horses were bewildered. Would she be arriving on time? Suddenly...
In this game, whoever is speaking where the whistle goes gains an extra point. And Paul, you were speaking as the whistle went, so you're now in the lead at the end of the round. John Finnemore, will you begin the next round? It is Wasabi Peas. Is that the correct pronunciation? Oh, right. I've never eaten them, so I don't know. I hope...
Did you say wallaby peas?
I don't know what I said. But you've got to laugh, so I'm going to keep it in.
It might become a catchphrase. Yeah. Nicholas Wallaby Peas Parsons.
Wasabi. I'm not just completely ignorant, right? So, John, the subject is wasabi peas. 60 seconds if you wanted, starting now.
Nicholas was right the first time. It's actually pronounced wasabi peas because they were invented, of course, by the Earl of Wasabi in 1752 when he was at his gaming table and wanted a smack but didn't want to lead the gambling and so asked his servant, who was bringing him plates of sandwiches, he turned them aside and said, "No, go find some peas and then roll them in something revolting."
Gyles challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah, it was a hesitation. So the 34 seconds still available, Gyles, having gained a point for a correct challenge, and wasabi peas starting now.
Nicholas may not recall that he and I were introduced to wasabi peas on the same night by the great chef Fanny Craddock, a beautiful lady who entertained us in 1969 at her Christmas party and produced wasabi peas. I was then 19 or 20 years of age. My host...
Paul challenge.
Repetition of 19.
Oh, yes.
1969, and when I was 19 or 20.
Yes. And not only are you... correct...
I think you misled yourself then, didn't you?
And as well, you get a point for a correct challenge. Wasabi peas is still the subject. 14 seconds available, starting now.
I said to the Australian barman, "What's in this beer?" He said, "Wallaby peas, mate. It's the only way you can get the froth to the top." Then I suddenly realised the bar snack in front of me. The wasabi peas glistened in the moonlight. Their greenness beckoning me, as if to say, "Chew, eat."
Paul Merton, speaking as the whistle went, gained an extra point. And he took that subject to the conclusion, and he's now in the lead ahead of all the others at the end of the round. Sheila Hancock, we'd like you to begin the next round of the subject now. One of those erudite subjects we like to introduce occasionally, Thomas Hardy. Will you tell us something about that great writer and author and poet, starting now?
The Mayor of Casterbridge is our next book for our book club.
Oh, yes, John, you've well spotted.
A repetition of book.
Yes. 55 seconds, Thomas Hardy, John, starting now.
Thomas Hardy came from Dorset, as do I, but I seem to have found it a jollier place than he did because those books are pretty miserable. In Far From the Madding Crowd, for instance, no sooner are you introduced to the shepherd and his...
Sheila, are you challenged?
Hesitation.
We call that hesitation, John, yeah? So Thomas Hardy's back with you, Sheila, and 40 seconds to go, starting now.
At Christmas time, I sometimes do a wonderful reading by him, which is about a band from a village who play at all the local events, including the religious services. And one Christmas, they get...
Giles challenge.
Repetition of Christmas.
And we had 2 Christmases.
Christmas before.
Yes. So, Giles, well listened. You've got in with 26 seconds to go on Thomas Hardy, Giles, starting now.
In a darkened room, I have been mistaken for Tom Hardy to give the short version of Thomas Hardy's actual name. Of course, when the lights are on, people see I don't have the tattoos, and consequently, though I seem to be a little bit rough, they are confused, wondering whether I'm an actor...
Sheila, you challenge, right?
You've never seemed a bit rough.
Sheila, benefit of the doubt, you have the subject. A point, of course. 7 seconds. Thomas Hardy, starting now.
And on this occasion, the sermon went on rather long, and they'd had a few ciders and fell asleep. And the little boy...
Sheila Hancock was speaking then as also when gained that extra point. She's moved forward. She's equal with Giles in second place, and they're all training Paul, who's still in the lead. And Paul, we're with you to begin. Flibberty-gibbet. Will you tell us something about flibberty-gibbet in this game, Paul, starting now?
Well, I believe it's an old Yorkshire word dating from the 16th century and possibly beyond. Hey, up flibberty-gibbet, that'll be an hour. And if you are from Yorkshire, I apologise for what I've just said. Meanwhile, flibberty-gibbet...
Sheila's challenge.
Repeat of Yorkshire?
Yes.
Yes, indeed.
Definitely.
Right, well done, Sheila. Well listened. You're sitting next to him, so you heard we didn't.
Nobody else was remotely listening.
Flibberty-gibbet is still the subject, and 48 seconds available. Sheila, starting now.
A flibberty-gibbet is usually a rather flighty person. I don't know how that name happened. Probably something to do with hanging. A gibbet could be that. I have no idea, but nevertheless...
Giles challenge.
Would you like to know?
Yeah.
I can't give a bonus point for pomposity, Giles.
Well, if you could, there'd be no point for the rest of us turning up.
So what is your challenge within the rules of just a minute?
I was just trying to help out. She seemed to be deviating. She seemed to be...
No, she wasn't deviating.
Oh,
She wasn't hesitating.
She was hesitating. Her knowledge was incomplete. It was a hesitation.
No, the audience have endorsed the fact that you are utterly incorrect. And Sheila has another point and 36 seconds on flibberty-gibbet, starting now.
I seem to remember my head mistress, Miss Fryer, who was a very solid lady, summoning me to her study once and saying, Sheila, you have to pull yourself together and be more serious. You're a bit of a flibberty-gibbet. I thought it was something very insulting, and I went home and asked my dad what it meant, and he said, I think it's something rather nice, actually, darling.
Giles challenge.
Yes.
Repetition of something.
Yes, it was. So, Giles, you have, this occasion, a correct challenge, and you have 11 seconds to tell us something about flibberty-gibbet, starting now.
You probably won't want to know this, Nicholas, but in Shakespeare's play King Lear, Act 4, Scene 1, Edgar is...
Sheila
I
challenge.
do know that.
I was saying...
It was Edgar who said it.
Yeah, well, indeed.
Smart ass.
But, Giles, you were interrupted, an incorrect challenge, and you keep a subject, and you have 3 seconds on flibberty-gibbet, starting now.
Flibberty-gibbet is a beautiful word, and it applies to all sorts of...
So at the end of that round, Giles moved forward. He's now equal with Sheila Hancock. They're both ahead of Paul Merton and John Finnemore. And Giles, we're with you to begin. Oh, the subject now, hippopotamus. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
I don't feel that you want to know that hippopotamus means river horse in Greek. That really is obtuse to share that, and pompous probably. So I will tell you how, as a child, I watched Disney's Fantasia, and when the 3 hippopotamuses appeared wearing pink tutus, it changed my life.
Isn't it it hippopotami?
That's right, yes, the plural is.
And isn't it two-tie?
Of course, colloquially people do say hippopotamuses, but it should be hippopotami, which is the plural of the Latin.
Except, as I explained, it's from the Greek. But I see the way the world is wagging these days. And I'm quite happy to join the dumbing down that you're encouraging. And I see the people are totally with me on this.
I don't know what you're talking about, Gyles.
Nor do I.
Right. Yes, it is from the Greek, oh, quite right. Sheila, correct challenge. 42 seconds, hippopotamus starting now.
They are simply wonderful animals. I really love them. Great big mouths with huge teeth. But strangely enough, I think they're vegetarian. So goodness only knows what those molars are for. Why are you pulling faces, Gyles?
Because they're not vegetarian, and I feel shy about sharing that with people. Because everyone's just going to turn on me and say, you're so pompous, you think you know it all, etc. They are omnivorous ungulates. They are in the main vegetarian, but not totally. It's part of the BBC's mission to explain the... Nicholas has...
I'm really worried about your mental state.
Yeah.
You must calm down.
Yeah.
I think it's time
that would be a good subject, wouldn't it? Keeping cool.
Take one of your pills now.
Can we get the programme's taser out? Not used it for 4 years.
So I don't know where we are in the show.
I've got what's it?
Who challenged who then?
I don't know.
Gyles challenged because he said that...
No, he was pulling faces. He was doing distracting stuff.
You were pulling faces and speaking without pressing your button.
Excuse me, there was hesitation because Sheila paused, and then I pressed my buzzer, as I do now, to explain, if it's allowed, that there was a deviation because hippopotamuses are not vegetarian.
Oh, that's right.
I'm ready.
Gyles, you're overacting again. You look as if you're desperate to go to the laboratory, actually.
Oh, no, I did that quite a while
Point to
ago.
Gyles and the subject. 23 seconds. Hippopotamus, Gyles, starting now.
Fortunately, I have the hide of a hippopotamus rather than a rhinoceros, so I feel comfortable about chatting amiably on this topic. I went to London Zoo, better known as the Regent's Park Aquarium.
John challenged.
I thought maybe a slight hesitation.
Oh, major hesitation.
A slight hesitation, but enough, John, as a new player of the game, to give it to you and say 10 seconds available. Hippopotamus starting now.
I have it on very good authority that they are omnivorous ungulates, and the name is with a horse, would you believe, which suggests an awful lack of imagination from the people.
So, John Timor, again speaking with the whistle went, he's leapt forward. He's still in fourth place, but he's leapt. But he's only 2 points behind Paul Merton and 3 or 4 points behind Gyles, Brandreth and Sheila Hancock. John, it is your turn to begin. The subject, a lovely one, Kew Gardens. Tell us something about that magnificent place in this game, starting now.
Kew Gardens is a large botanical area of London on the River Thames, not far from Richmond, to which I have never been. But I imagine it to be like Jurassic Park, but with flowers. Huge tulips come crashing through the undergrowth, devouring the visitors. Swarms of pansies fill the air, all with ravenous mouths, looking for anyone they might snatch and devour. It's a terrifying place. I don't know why they're allowed to keep it open. Join me now in my campaign to shut Kew Gardens before somebody is killed by a hyacinth again. This reign of terror must end. We must stand together against these terrifying hybrids created by Richard Attenborough in his lucid moments, which were very few in that film, which is not the topic.
Right, yes.
Run out of breath in the end, unfortunately.
And utterly devious. Totally inaccurate. And Paul, you have a correct challenge, and you have 7 seconds on Kew Gardens, starting now.
As I stood in the huge hothouse at Kew Gardens, looking up at this magnificent palm, I reflected on my time in Cairo.
So, Paul Merton speaking as whistle when gained that extra point. Oh, very interesting. There's 3 of them equal in the lead now, and John Finnemore is 1 point behind those 3. And Sheila, it's your turn to begin. The subject is P's and Q's. Tell us something about that interesting subject in this game, starting now.
Mind your P's and Q's. That's something my nana used to say to me. And it went along with little girls should be seen and not heard. Know your betters. Behave yourself. I loathe things like that. And thank God people don't say them to youngsters anymore. P's and Q's probably represents...
Gyles' challenge.
Hesitation.
Yes, there was. You tell us what it represented, Gyles. And even if you don't know, you'll make a very good effort at it. And there are 35 seconds at which you can try and achieve that. P's and Q's, Gyles, starting now.
Our chairman is attempting to goad me. I will not actually be upset by this, but will...
Sheila Hancock challenge.
That's not the subject.
It is. I was doing what he asked me to do, and I was therefore minding my P's and Q's.
Sheila, I think it was a bit of a sharp challenge. He hadn't really got going. 30 seconds are still available, Gyles. P's and Q's starting now.
Sheila is quite right to keep me on the subject. Minding your P's and Q's comes from the French. Attention à vos pieds et queue. The first word, meaning your feet, gives you the initial letter P, and the second of these collections of letters gives you instead the tail...
John challenge.
Repetition of gives.
Yes.
Gives you.
I should explain to our listeners, Gyles's actions and facial expressions are worth a lot if you want to come and watch this.
He's turning into Kenneth Williams.
No, it's not missing about. Not to know. Wait. So that's a correct challenge to you, John. And there are 10 seconds to tell us something about P's and Q's starting now.
I always assumed it simply stood for pleases and thank yous, but I'm sure Gyles knows better than I. On the other hand, Scrabble is somewhere where both P's and Q's...
So, John Finnemore was speaking then as the whistle went. He's leapt forward. He's still in fourth place, but he's only 1 point behind Sheila Hancock and Paul Merton, and he's 3 points behind Giles Brandreth, who's in the lead. And Paul, we're with you to begin. I'm a bit nervous of giving this to you because I know the way you react to me sometimes. The subject is an old fossil. And you're writing it down. You've got many points at my expense in the past. What will you do on this occasion? 60 seconds available, starting now.
An old fossil sounds a little bit like they're saying the same thing twice. I suppose young fossils can be had. It's all comparative in the world of fossil land. One day, Nicholas Parsons was visiting a church in Dorset, and somebody asked if we could take a brass rubbing of him. So as he lay on the floor, they laid the cloth gently upon his frame, and they applied pressure up and down his corporeal body, and suddenly they realised that here was somebody that really was at the heart of show business. This man remembers what life was like before horses. It is extraordinary how far he goes back. The British Broadcasting Corporation was but a twinkle in the eye of its producers when this young man here first appeared on the stage and turned to Shakespeare and said, "Your last play was a load of old rubbish, get off." He started juggling, the balls were flying in the air. Of course, this was a time before we had proper balls, but then they were made of...
Oh, John, you've got in with 5 seconds to go.
Sorry, that was mean.
So what was your challenge?
Repetition of balls. In more ways than one.
That's been my sort of trademark on this show. No, it's not repetition.
John, you have a correct challenge. You have 5 seconds on an old fossil starting now.
Old Fossil seems to conjure up a trialer bite with a Zimmer frame stumbling into...
I think that Paul Merton deserves a bonus point for keeping going for 55 seconds like that. And it shows you how generous I am, because it was all against me. But now, at the end of that round, very interesting, all very close, only 1 point separates them all. And Gyles, we're back with you to begin. Making a paper boat. Can you tell us something about that ridiculous subject in this game, starting now?
Making a paper boat. I recall the first paper boat that I made was a Japanese craft that I called the good ship Origami. It was many years ago now, and I was down by the pond in Kensington Gardens with my Uncle Albert, a defrocked vicar, who now is no longer at liberty, but then was an amusing character who did extraordinary things with tissue paper and old newspapers as well, and conceived making a paper boat as an entertainment. He wore it as a hat, and then dipped his head into the water, and suddenly it floated away with my dreams, and a couple of acorns tucked inside the poop, so that I would think always of this extraordinary and bizarre character who looked not unlike Paul Merton, which gives you a flavour of how handsome he was. Had Sheila Hancock been there by my...
Well, it doesn't often happen. When it does, it's marvellous. Gyles started with the subject and kept going for 60 seconds, was not interrupted, so he gets a point for not being interrupted and a bonus point for keeping going without hesitation, repetition or deviation. So let's give you the scores and move into the final round. Sheila Hancock, who always gives such value, she's training only a little in fourth place. She's only 1 point behind Paul Merton and John Finnemore, and they are 2 points behind our leader, who now is Gyles Brandreth. And John Finnemore, it's your turn to begin. A wild goose chase. Tell us something about that subject in this game, if you can, starting now.
Perhaps of all the wild goose chases I have been on, either as hunter or as goose, the wildest of all was that organised by the Earl of Wassaby, fresh from his pea creation. He told us to meet in the Great Hall because the curious thing was this wild goose chase was to be indoors, and so the butler released the goose. We all leapt onto our ducks, as is for traditional steed, in a wild goose chase, and the chase was on. Through the manor we romped, up the staircases, along the corridors. It was a wild goose chase to make your eyes water, and when we found it, we tapped it on the wing and said, "You're it!" And then the hunter became the hunted, as we had to flee from the wild goose, which was terribly angry now and pursued us with a vigour you would not believe. Its beak was riven with fury, its eyes...
Well, John Finnemore, who's only played the game once before, showed panache and style as he took that subject by the grip of the neck, and he kept going without hesitation, repetition or deviation till the 60 seconds was up. So you get a point for speaking when the whistle went, and you get a bonus point for not being interrupted, and you finish up, unfortunately, in second place.
Pity.
But you're 2 points ahead of Sheila Hancock and Paul Merton, and 1 point. It's all very, very close. If you're interested in the score, 1 point behind Gyles Brandreth. So to be fair, we have to say, Gyles, you are the winner this week. We do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute, and we'll want to tune in again the same time next week. It just remains me to say thank you to these 4 fine, exciting, fun players of the game: Paul Merton, Sheila Hancock, John Finnemore and Gyles Brandreth. Another round of applause for them. I thank Harry Sterling for the wonderful way she blows her whistle, and also for putting up with my facetious remarks. We're grateful to our producer, Victoria Lloyd. We're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. So from me, Nicholas Parsons, and this audience here, goodbye, and tune in again the next time we take to the air and we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but to welcome to the programme four exciting, talented performers who are going to show their skill with words and language as they try and speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And those four are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Josh Widdicombe, and seated on my left, Marcus Brigstock and Holly Walsh. Please welcome all four of them. Beside me is Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me with the score, run the stopwatch for me, and she'll blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And we begin the show this week with Marcus Brigstock. Marcus, a nice educational subject, Pinocchio. Tell us something about Pinocchio in this game, starting now.
When Pinocchio told a lie, his nose would grow, and I've often thought that it would be fun if politicians had the same system in place, and then you suddenly realise how many people Jeffrey Archer would have blinded by mistake. Pinocchio dreamed of being a little boy. He was, in fact, made of wood and sung a song about it. Geppetto didn't hear it. He was his father, or Pinocchio hoped he was going to be, when he became less...
Paul challenged.
Sadly, hesitation.
Sadly, hesitation, because it was very interesting and accurate.
Wow. I thought it was tailing off, interest-wise.
It sounded like a drunk person doing Krakenori.
I thought he sounded very interesting, and I was reminded of Pinocchio, which a lot of it I'd forgotten.
It's a lovely story.
It's a wonderful story.
I wish I could remember it.
33 seconds are left for you, Paul, with the correct challenge. You get a point for that, of course, and it is Pinocchio starting now.
My knowledge of the story comes from the Walt Disney cartoon feature of the 1940s, which has several very frightening scenes. One recalls the image of a boy turning into a donkey, more or less shown in silhouette on a wall, but nevertheless an intensely frightening, traumatic experience when you're young. Pinocchio dreams of being a real boy. He looks down at his wooden knees and thinks to himself, I could start a fire if I wasn't careful. And his father would suddenly walk in with a bowl of porridge in the morning and say, even though you are not flesh and blood, I look upon you as my own...
Right. In this game, whoever is speaking when the whistle goes gains an extra point. It was Paul Merton, so he's got 2 points now. He's in the lead, of course, at the end of the round. And Josh Widdicombe, we'd like you to begin the next round. And the subject is, a simple one, a nice cup of tea. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
There is nothing I like more than a nice cup of tea. However, the problem is there are so many rules and regulations surrounding it. Do you put the milk in first? Is the sugar to go in second?
Paul challenge.
Hesitation, sadly.
It was, yes.
One of the longest hesitations ever. I felt like time had stopped.
You actually included a tea break in your own.
So, Paul, you had a correct challenge. And you have 47 seconds still available. A nice cup of tea starting now.
The way I like to make a nice cup of tea is to have some tea, milk, sugar, but no water. I like it specifically dry. So what I do is...
Josh challenge.
I think if milk's involved, it's not dry.
No, it's true. I should have said it was powdered milk, but I didn't. I didn't make that clear. I didn't realise you were taking it down as a recipe, but I do. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right.
Josh, listening well. You have a correct challenge. You have a point for that, of course. A nice cup of tea is back with you. 38 seconds available, starting now.
My dad has a strange theory about tea, and that is that the more sugars you have in there, the less spiritual you are as a person. He has no reason to back this up. However, he judges every person he meets.
Marcus challenge.
Yeah, repetition of person.
Yes. So Marcus, a correct challenge. There are still 24 seconds for a nice cup of tea with you, starting now.
One of my favourite phrases when you're handed a cup of tea that's only half full is to go, "Oi, tide's out." People never really expect it, but it pleases me no end. I cannot bear being handed a substandard.
Right. Holly challenge.
I think two-handed.
Yes, you handed it more than once.
Quite right.
Well listened, Holly. So you've got him with 10 seconds to go on a nice cup of tea starting now.
I myself am a huge fan of a nice cup of tea. And what I do when I get up in the morning is I take my giant Sports Direct mug, which I got free when I bought a shell suit once.
So Holly Walsh within, speaking as a whistle when, gained that extra point. And she's now in second place behind Paul Merton. And Holly, we're with you to begin now. And the subject is a lovely historical one. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Do you know anything about them? If not, try. 60 seconds. Starting now.
The Hanging Gardens of Babylon are famous gardens found somewhere in the Middle East, which were built initially by King Nebuchadnezzar around 600 BC. And he very much was the Alan Titchmarsh of his time. He spent thousands and thousands and thousands...
Oh, it's so natural to do it, and it's so wrong in just a minute. Paul, you challenge.
You spent too much money.
Too many thousands. Paul,
Yeah.
there are 43 seconds still available. You tell us something about the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, starting now.
One of the great wonders of the world, I believe, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, but I always felt sorry for the gardeners that worked there, because every night they would have to wander around these hanging gardens, suspended by silken threads which had been spun by obedient spiders, hovering over hyacinths, tulips and daffodils. Because these gardens were hanging, they weren't there in the soil the way that Alan Titchmarsh we've heard of before would say, well...
Marcus challenge.
Is it a repetition if someone else has said?
No.
Oh, well,
It
then,
would be-
as you were,
I think the
beg your
game
pardon.
would be too... Marcus, the game is difficult enough, but that makes it even more complicated.
Yeah, no, sure.
But you listened, you heard Titchmarsh before, but it wasn't Paul who said it. So, Paul, an incorrect challenge, 18 seconds still available. The Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Starting now.
Last night I dreamt that once again I returned to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Marcus challenge.
Well, repetition, he just said he's been there before.
Yeah. But as I'd only dreamt it, I didn't actually go again.
All right.
It doesn't matter. It was a repetitious thought. He didn't repeat it colloquially, and we're dealing with words and language in just a minute. But well
there are so many rules suddenly.
So 13 seconds for you, Paul. Still.
Which way are we going in terms of time? Surely I've was it 13 seconds last time?
No, there have been so many interruptions.
Oh, right,
There's still 13 seconds left.
Oh, right,
The
okay.
Hanging Gardens of Babylon, starting now.
I was having a nice cup of tea in the Hanging Gardens of Babylon with Pinocchio when suddenly who should walk in but a green fly that was incredibly confused by the Hanging Gardens. It said, normally I would expect these plantations to be somewhere near
So Paul Merton, speaking as a whistle when, gained that extra point. And he's in a strong lead at the end of the round. And Paul, we're actually with you to begin. The subject now is soliloquy. Tell us something about soliloquy in this game, starting now.
is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York, and all the clouds that lowered upon our house are in the deep bosom of the ocean buried. Now are our brows bound with Victoria's wreaths, our bruised arms hung up for monuments. And yet do I fear thy nature that is too full of the lasciviousness of the pleasing.
Josh, challenge.
Repetition of yet.
That's Shakespeare's fault.
Josh got in first with the correct challenge, and there are 37 seconds left, Josh, on soliloquy, starting now.
Now is the winter of our discontent, is the beginning of something I haven't learnt. Because I don't know much about soliloquies. People ask me who my favourite Brazilian footballer is, I would say soliloquy. An excellent right winger who played in the 1970s Corinthian team. People like Garrincha, but soliloquy could certainly move. He could dodge, he could weave, he could nutmeg. I've said
Paul, challenge.
There was a lot of he could.
He could, yes.
Yes.
Paul, a correct challenge. You have another point. You have 13 seconds if you need it. The soliloquy starting now.
As I stand alone on this stage with no other actors in my presence, and I look towards you, the audience, I spill out the guts and hearts of my innermost feelings. You will hear the plans that I have devised to become...
Paul Merton was then speaking as a whistle went. Gain that extra point for doing so. Marcus, we're with you to begin. And the subject is Fly tipping. Tell us something about fly tipping in just a minute, starting now.
I've done loads of fly tipping in my time. What you do is late at night, you sneak up on a fly while it's asleep and tip it over. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. There are other versions. That's where you sneak up on a...
Oh, right. Holly challenged.
I think it's two sneaks.
Two sneaks. Double sneakiness.
Yes,
the
double
worst
sneak.
kind.
So, Holly, you've got a correct challenge. You have a point for that, of course. Fly tipping is the subject, starting now.
Fly tipping is one of the worst things that you can do on a street or a lay-by, whereby you take any rubbish that you want to get rid of, instead of going to a municipal tip, you take it...
Oh, Marcus challenge.
Yeah, repetition of take.
Yes, you were taking it too often.
took it too
Right.
often.
It's a tough game, my love. Right. 33 seconds are still available. Marcus, fly tipping starting now.
Fly tipping is when you tell a fly who's going to win the Grand National and they have a bet on it and they make loads of money. That's the fly tipping I've done anyway, apart from when I've dumped a load of old fridges and stuff outside Holly's house in the middle of the night. She doesn't mind. There's 3 or 4 and a dismantled motorbike outside there anyway. She lives in that sort of place.
Paul challenge.
Did we get outside twice?
We did have outside twice.
Yes.
And went outside our house
Yeah.
and outside right. So, Paul, well listened. You've got him with 11 seconds to go on fly tipping starting now.
Well, I think most people have covered the subject of fly tipping, but I suppose I would offer this personal observation. If you ever find yourself in North Paraguay, don't under any circumstances listen for the whistle, because it'll take longer than you think.
Right. So, Paul Merton was speaking as the whistle went. Gained the extra point and has increased his lead at the end of the round. And with Josh Widdicombe now to begin, and it's Capability Brown. Ooh. So can you tell us something about Capability Brown in this game, starting now?
My father had a lot of different euphemisms for a number 2. However, the one I found most offensive was when he'd say, I'm just popping...
We've already had Alan Titchmarsh.
So what's your challenge?
Well, I wondered where we were going with this.
I know, I would
Radio
want it
4,
too.
dragged into the 21st century.
Right.
I haven't got a challenge, though.
Have you got anything to win a bonus point?
No.
Right. So, Josh, you were interrupted. You get a point for that.
Absolutely.
And you have 52 seconds available. Capability Brown starting now.
He'd walk back into the room and said, I've just met up with Capability Brown. We'd all find this awful, but it was much better than his other options. However, I feel it does a disservice to Capability Brown, who is a great historical figure who created a lot of beautiful parks that we enjoy today. The problem with these places is they have WCs that my father will go into.
Marcus challenged.
Yeah, repetition of father.
Yes, your father came into it too often.
Far too...
So... There are 25 seconds still available, Marcus. Capability Brown, starting now.
The worst garden I ever visited was designed by Incapability Brown, Capability Brown's sister. Oh, it was a shambles. There was lavender all over.
Paul Challenge.
Well, to be pedantic, he's talking about Incapability Brown.
That's right.
So it's deviation from
So
Capability Brown.
You said it was his sister. I don't know even if she existed or not.
Oh, yeah, had a terrible life. Terrible life. Imagine being named Incapability. Very, very difficult from the word go. Even the register at school will have been traumatic.
Difficult to break into the management level.
Very difficult, yeah.
So, Paul, the correct challenge. You have 15 seconds still available.
How many?
15.
Fine, fantastic.
Capability Brown, starting now.
Capability Brown looked at the study plans of the Hanging Gardens of Babylon and said, I wish to recreate something in horticulture which hasn't been seen for a long time. He said to his great mate, Lord Malmesbury, I shall create dunes, hills, great vistas.
So Paul Merton was again speaking as the whistle went. Another point to him, creased his lead, and all the other three are equal in second place. And Holly, we're with you to begin. So Holly Walsh, will you tell us something about Wellington Boot? 60 seconds starting now.
Wellington boots were titled after the Duke of Wellington, who needed some kind of waterproof footwear when wading through his moats, puddles, streams, ponds, and any other kind of water-based wetness that...
Josh, you challenged?
Hesitation?
I think that was a hesitation,
Good
yes.
phrase, though, water-based wetness. Should be written on bottles.
Josh, you have 45 seconds. The subject is Wellington boot, starting now.
The worst experience I ever had with a Wellington boot was on Red Nose Day in the early 90s when me and my best friend Thomas Bosons decided we were going to walk 3 miles to the town of Bovey Tracy wearing Wellington boots full of custard. However, the problem arose when my mum didn't think that we might want the pudding served at a lower temperature than you would get it on a plate or spotted dick. So we burnt our shins and ended up in A&E, which is not how you want comic relief to turn.
Oh, Holly challenged.
I think 2 comic relief.
No, I think I said Red Nose Day.
There were comic relief, yes.
No, you...
What's that?
I thought I said Red Nose Day.
He did, yeah.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Red Nose
Yes,
Day,
indeed. So, Holly, I'm afraid an incorrect challenge. And Josh has got another point. And you've got 11 seconds on Wellington boot, starting now.
At my school fair, there used to be a game called Welly Wanging, where you would attempt to throw the Wellington boot as far as you could. My father once had a go at this, but he...
So Josh Widdicombe was speaking as the whistle went again, that extra point, and with others in the round, he has leapt forward. He's still in second place, but he's moved, and he's just ahead of Marcus Brigstock and Holly Walsh, who are equal in third place. Paul's out in the lead, Paul Merton, and Marcus, it's your turn to begin again. Keeping up with the Joneses, that's the subject. 60 seconds if you want it, starting now.
Oh, they're fast runners, the Joneses. I remember being entered in a race with them and I stood no chance. The youngest Jones, whose name was Toby, set off at a rate of knots. Well, I did everything I could, but I was wearing Wellington boots and still recovering from a half cup of tea I'd been handed. So I was in no shape. I did the best running I've...
Josh challenged.
Hesitation?
Yeah.
No.
Well, I don't mind putting my hand up and admitting it, Nicholas. If I didn't hesitate then, I was definitely about to. I think sometimes it's important to be honest. I had nothing else.
You're a very sporting player of the game, Marcus. And Josh, correct challenge. 38 seconds are still available. Keeping up with the Joneses, starting now.
When you're attempting to keep up with a Jones, the important thing is to decide which Jones to try and keep up with. I reckon I could outpace Griff Rhys-Jones purely on age. However, I think Marion Jones, the very fast...
Marcus challenge.
I think everyone's going to hate me for this, but repetition of Jones.
Oh, yeah, good
Yes,
call.
very clever. The subject is keeping
People
up...
go, yes, we do hate you. Yes. Awful man.
So, correct challenge. Well, listen, Marcus. 24 seconds available. Keeping up with the Joneses, starting now.
One of the most difficult places on earth to keep up with the Joneses is, of course, Wales, where almost everybody is called Jones. I tried in Pembrokeshire on one occasion to keep up with the Joneses and I lost. They went, oh, you've come absolutely nowhere near it. And then they were livid with me, of course.
Holly challenge.
Racism?
Holly, I don't think it's in the rules of just a minute, but we did enjoy the interruption. So give Holly
Would have been a
bonus.
hell of a starting point for the game if the rules were hesitation, deviation, repetition and racism.
No, she said it as a very interesting, clever remark, which gets you a bonus point, my darling. But the subject is still with Marcus. He gets a point for being interrupted. And he's got keeping up with the Joneses. 5 seconds starting now.
Keeping up with the Joneses is never easy. It's about front and appearance. 2 things I have.
So, Marcus Brigstock, speaking as the whistle went, has moved forward again. He's equal with Josh Widdicombe in second place. They're just ahead of Holly Walsh, and they're all trailing Paul Merton just a little, but they're catching up on our leader. And Josh, we're back with you to begin. And the subject now is modern technology I couldn't live without. 60 seconds starting now.
I've just got a contactless debit card. Oh, what a joy that is. They don't even know I've paid and I'm out of pret-a-manger.
Marcus challenge.
Yeah, deviation. This is about modern technology.
I
I think anything invented before a fortnight ago shouldn't count.
But to be fair, this is a Radio 4 audience and they're still wowed by checks.
Give Holly a bonus point for that. Josh, I'm not accepting the challenge. So you've got 51 seconds to tell us more about modern technology I couldn't live without, starting now.
I don't think I love anyone as much as I love my Sky Plus television.
Paul, challenge.
2 quick loves.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, 2 loves
Sadly.
there. Paul, correct challenge. You have got in with 47 seconds on modern technology I couldn't live without, starting now.
I could live without all of it.
Holly, you challenge first.
And I mainly do.
For a man who made his career on television, that's quite a...
Television isn't modern.
Is it not?
No.
And you've got in with 45 seconds on modern technology I couldn't live without, starting now.
There are various items of modern technology I couldn't live without, one of which is my phone, which I feel I look at more than I do my own baby at the moment. I stare at my mobile as though it's my best friend, waiting for somebody to text me or WhatsApp. Something I found out recently with that particular app is that it saves the photographs that people send into your phone, which means...
Josh, challenge.
Phone?
Phone.
Yes, well, listen, Josh. And 22 seconds available still, Josh, on modern technology I couldn't live without, starting now.
My favourite app is the Sky Sports News Football Up.
Marcus, challenge.
Repetition of Sky.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Well, listen, Marcus.
It does sound like I've got some kind of contract where I'm promoting them on Radio 4.
17 seconds, Marcus. Modern technology I couldn't live without, starting now.
Like a lot of people, I simply couldn't live without my NutriBullet. Why? Because I have no teeth and I can't be bothered to chew. Everything I consume has to be handed to me in liquid form. What does it say about humanity, really, that we have to do that to the things that we...
Right. So at the end of that round, Marcus Brigstock was speaking as a whistle. When he's moved forward, he's equal now with Josh Widdicombe in second place. They're trailing Paul Merton, but they're ahead of Holly Walsh. And Holly, we're with you to begin. The subject, a lovely intellectual one, the Bard. Tell us something about him in this game, starting now.
When I was at school, the phrase "the bard" was not used in relation to Shakespeare as we would expect, but it was for somebody who lied. If they didn't tell the truth, we would say, "Oh, the bard," and make a gesture as though stroking a beard on our chins, in a similar way to people saying chinny and the word I've already said, so I can't say it again. The Bard are people who are unable to attend Wetherspoons for various reasons. Maybe they spat at a bartender, or if...
Marcus, challenge.
Deviation, that does not get you barred from Wetherspoons. Spitting is absolutely base level expectation.
I mean, this is what Holly may feel, and she was playing for laughter, so I think I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. And same, you have another point, Holly, in 27 seconds on the Bard, starting now.
The Bard also find themselves swearing at fruit machines, kicking it, looking for money, or tipping up tables to find chewing gum underneath that they can then chew for the rest of the day.
Josh, challenge.
Well, I thought it was a repetition of chew, but it was chewing and chew, wasn't
That's
it?
right, yeah.
That's what chewing's like.
Not if you've got a NutriBullet.
No.
Go, Holly. They're all giving you the benefit of the doubt. So you have another point, and 15 seconds on the Bard, starting now.
The Bard is, of course, a great playwright, someone that we are proud of as a country, although it's very difficult to quote him, as there's so much repetition. And in just a minute, that is Bard. For example, we have
Paul, challenge it.
Hesitation, so.
There was a definite...
It was actually a dramatic pause.
Which gave me the opportunity to ring the bell.
And you've got him with 1 second to go.
Oh, dear. If I were you, I'd ask for your money back.
This time, Paul, you've gone in with a correct challenge. 1 second to go. The Bard, starting now.
William Shakespeare.
So Paul Merton speaking as a whistle when gained that extra point. And he's increased his lead. The other three are actually equal in second place, just only 3 or 4 points behind. So this is going to be the last round. And Paul, we're back with you to begin. And the subject is reading the phone book. What a subject. Talk on it if you can, Paul, starting now.
Reading the phone book by its very nature is a repetitive process. By the time you find your way all the... Oh, no. Terrible.
Josh, you challenge first.
Yeah.
We interpret that as hesitation.
Absolutely.
Josh, you have 53 seconds available. Reading the phone book starting now.
A lot of people would read the phone book alphabetically, but I always found it was more fun to read it in number order. Oh, the challenge. You'd start with phone number 1. Very difficult.
Marcus, challenge.
Yeah.
Number. Repetition
Right,
of number.
yes.
Yeah.
Marcus, a point. 42 seconds available. Reading the phone book starting now.
I once read the phone book. It was either that or a Dan Brown, and I think I made the right choice, to be perfectly honest with you. I won't tell you how the phone book ends, but it is pretty exciting. Once you get into the final chapters, the whole thing gets very tense because you don't know who's done it. They do reveal it with the last word in the phone book.
Paul,
Did we have
challenge.
last pages?
Yeah, the last pages.
Yes, I think we did. Yeah.
So, Paul, you've got in with 18 seconds to go. Tell us more about reading the phone book starting now.
Reading the phone book is absolutely fascinating. There's not much of a story, but the list of characters is enormous. If you look at the cast, you think to yourself, oh, I know that person, number 27. He's the man. His phone number is this, 02752. There's 2.
So, Josh, you spotted it first.
Yeah, repetition of 2.
Absolutely.
And you actually got in with 2 seconds to go.
No, you normally boo at that point.
So, Josh, 2 seconds on reading the phone book starting now.
The big decision, of course, is yellow paper.
So, let me give you the final score if you're interested in the points. It's all very close. Holly, who's done well before, she finished in a very good 4th place. No, she was only 1 point behind Marcus Brigstock, and he was only 2 points behind Josh Widdicombe, who's done very well in the past. And there were 3 or 4 points behind Paul Merton, who started with the lead, kept the lead, and so we say, Paul, you are our winner this week. It only remains for me to say thank you to these 4 delightful players of the game, Paul Merton, Josh Widdicombe, Holly Walsh and Marcus Brigstock. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such style. We thank our producer, Victoria Lloyd. We're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. We're grateful to this lovely audience here at the Radio Theatre. So from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and the team, goodbye, thank you, and tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute! Welcome to Just a Minute. Hello, thank you. My name is Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, talented players who are going to show their skill with words and language as they speak on a subject that I give them, and they try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And they are seated on my right, Paul Merton and Josie Lawrence, and seated on my left, Graham Norton and Alexei Sayle. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me sits Hayley Sterling, who's going to help me with the score and blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And Paul Merton, we'd like you to begin the first round. Paul, I don't know what your knowledge of tennis is, but we've got a Wimbledon question here. Virginia Wade. Tell us something about Virginia Wade in this game, starting now.
Virginia Wade was the last single Wimbledon champion before Andy Murray. She won her title in 1977, which was the Queen's Jubilee. She was in the doubles that year, but she was partnered with Zorro. The 2 of them looked magnificent as they walked out in the centre court, Virginia bouncing the ball up and down against her feminine thighs, while the aforementioned masked superhero took turns to stab the umpires. This was seen as unfair play at the time, but Virginia Wade was British and everybody knew it. As the Union Jack swam proudly in the sky, people would say, why are those flags swimming? But they didn't care, because patriotic clouds were singing a song all across SW19. If you love this game that we invented back in the 19th century, then you also adore Virginia Wade. What an almighty woman she was. She was incredible, picking up a tennis racket and hitting a ball as hard as she could, better than anybody in the world. I love her. She was my mother, father, son, and also backbone.
So what a way to begin a programme, to start with a subject, to finish with a subject.
I think people were very lenient with me, thank you.
And I didn't know you were even a tennis enthusiast.
I didn't know it myself, to be honest. Turns out
Anyway, you
fan.
kept going without hesitation, repetition or deviation for 60 seconds. You get a point for speaking with the whistle went and a bonus point for not being interrupted. So at the end of that round, you're the only one to have any points, the only one to have spoken, of course. Josie, we'd like you to start the next round. The subject is an umbrella plant. Can you tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now?
The umbrella plant is the favourite house plant of Rihanna, I guess. It's also an evergreen. Now, apparently, it's poisonous to cats. I've got a wonderful garden, and although you're meant to keep this particular plant indoors, I grow mine outside. I don't care. That's the kind of person I am. But it's supposed to be poisonous to cats.
Alexei, your challenge.
Poisonous.
I said it twice, didn't I?
Poisonous.
Very poisonous.
It's very poisonous.
Yes. 37 seconds are still available. You've got a point, of course, for a correct challenge. And the subject is an umbrella plant, starting now.
I owned an umbrella plant, but it gave me a great deal of displeasure because I turned into a plant hypochondriac. I used to worry obsessively about the health of my many green things which were growing in my flat. It was a fashion in the 1970s to have so many of those aforementioned living organisms. It was very much, if you went round to somebody's house, it was like attending a dinner party in the Vietnamese jungle. Because apart from the plants which were all around, there was also a lot of gunfire from AK-47s.
So, Alexei Sayle was speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point for doing so. You're in second. No, you're equal now in the lead with Paul, and we'd like you to begin the next round. The subject now, a nice culinary one, beef Wellington. Oh. Are you in the kitchen, the cooking and like that?
No, I'm a terrible cook. I can, apart from my sausage surprise, of course.
What's the surprise?
Come round and I'll show you.
I think we're going down a route we don't want to follow at the moment. Anyway, there are 60 seconds, Alexei, if you wanted. Tell us something about beef Wellington, starting now.
The beef Wellington was a piece of footwear that was invented during the Napoleonic Wars to aid the soldiers because there was no rubber, because it hadn't been invented.
Josie, challenge.
Repetition of because.
Oh, yes, too many becauses there, right. So, Josie, a correct challenge, a point, of course, and there are 50 seconds available. Beef Wellington, starting now.
I've only tried to cook beef Wellington once when I was trying to impress at a dinner party, but it was a terrible mistake. I got the puff pastry, the mushrooms, the garlic, the beef itself. What you're supposed to do is sear the beef, but I didn't.
Oh, no. Start. Rewind time.
Rewind time?
No, because beef's the
He was going to criticise my beef.
It's the subject.
Yeah,
I'm an
you can
idiot.
repeat-
I'm
yes,
so
you can.
sorry.
I know, you can repeat what's on the card. So all I have to do is to say that Josie was interrupted, so she gets a legitimate
Thank you,
point.
darling.
And 33 seconds are still available. Josie, beef Wellington, starting now.
So you have to use cling film. You put the beef in the cling film and roll.
So that was a repetition.
Repetition of cling
Cling
film.
film.
Yes. So, Paul, you have got in with 28 seconds. You tell us something about beef Wellington, starting now.
I don't know anything about it. I'm not going to spend 28 seconds pretending I do.
It's nice when you do.
You didn't know very much about Virginia Wade, but you kept going for
That's
60
true.
seconds. Anyway, Graham, you challenge first, right? 26 seconds of beef Wellington starting now.
Beef Wellington is my friend Ronnie's signature dish. When I visited his beautiful home, really should see it, he has it so nice, he will prepare a lovely beef Wellington, which is something he is very good at making. He does all the things that Josie described earlier. And what he really...
Well, I think there was a slight hesitation in hand. So I thought it was extended an and there with laughter, which I interpret in a very strict way as being hesitation. I might be completely
Well, I think
wrong.
I'd be very strict if I did interpret it.
Yes, yeah, okay,
I mean,
fair enough.
he does chuckle a lot as he talks.
Yes, he's good to start it off.
So I think I've got to give him the benefit of the doubt
Absolutely,
and say it wasn't an
It wasn't. Okay.
No.
And
I also felt there was a certain desperation in what Graham was saying. Where he pleading
and it
with
would be
somebody
very
to jump.
unfair if I took it away, because there's only 2 seconds available.
Oh.
Right. So more for you on beef Wellington, Graham, in 2 seconds, starting now.
Duxelle of mushroom is the thing you put in.
So Graham Norton, speaking of the whistle when, gained that extra point, and he's now equal in the lead with Paul Merton, and the other two are equal in second place, only 1 point behind. And Paul, we're with you to begin. Malapropisms. Tell us something about malapropisms starting now.
Malapropisms, I wish I knew more about this. Was it Sheridan who wrote The School for Scoundrels that might have had The School for Scandal? I repeat the whole thing.
Josie challenge.
Repetition.
Yes, 53 seconds for you, Josie, on malapropisms, starting now.
A friend of mine was absolutely brilliant at malapropisms, and she had no idea that what she was saying was completely the wrong word. For example, she told people she was having a dildo rail built around the walls. And one time at a dinner party, she'd had a new coffee machine and said, "It's just copulating." My mother, too, was very good at malapropisms and getting words slightly wrong, like on the sad day in the 70s, knowing that I'd loved punk rock for many years. She came into my bedroom and said, "I've got some sad news for you, darling. Sid Vigorous is dead." I just love a good malapropism, Paul. It's true, it was from School for Scandal, the play, and she always got her words wrong. I'm trying to think of another malapropism, but I can't at the minute.
Josie, saved by the whistle. You were just still speaking as you went, and you gained that extra point for doing so, and you've taken the lead. One ahead of Paul Merton. And also, Josie, it's your turn to begin. It's now geographical again, the Caribbean. Tell us something about the Caribbean, starting now.
I took a friend to the Caribbean once. Jamaica? No, Corfu, actually. We were trekking over there.
Alexei challenge.
Corfu's not in the Caribbean.
No,
It is. It is.
It's really not.
Oh, no, I meant Cuba! Did I say Corfu?
Yeah.
You know what? I really meant Cuba. Oh, God, menopause is cruel.
I began to doubt myself because you were just going, no, it is. Is it?
I thought you'd all gone mad.
So, Alexei, you have a correct challenge. And you have 54 seconds on the Caribbean, starting now.
I made a film in the Caribbean once on an island called Curacao, which is famous for its liqueur, which is a blue colour. And I thought somehow that effect was achieved naturally. But what happens is that they simply pour antifreeze from any car into a bottle and sell it to you. I feel guilty now because that's not true. I just said it for effect because I'm on this programme and I'm panicking about the things I could say. And now people from Curacao will be angry.
Paul challenge.
Unbelievably, repetition of what Curacao was it?
Which is in the Caribbean, by the way. I know.
Paul, correct challenge. 22 seconds available. The Caribbean, starting now.
I've got a new exercise video out called Pilates of the Caribbean. And it's a magnificent form of keep fit. Because what you do is you go to the Caribbean, you intoxicate yourself with the beautiful sunshine, the fresh air, swimmingly beautifully up your nose.
Josie challenge.
No, got it wrong. It was beautiful and beautifully.
That's right.
Yes. I realised as I opened my mouth. God, the number of times I've said that.
So, Paul, an incorrect challenge. and 5 seconds still available. The Caribbean, starting now.
I remember spending part of my first honeymoon in the Caribbean and a great high...
So Paul Merton, speaking as a whistle Wayne, gained that extra point, has increased his lead ahead of Josie Lawrence, Alexei, Sayle and Graham Norton in that order. And Alexei, we're back with you to begin. The subject I've got in front of me is just folk. It's a rather strange subject, but I'm sure it's been chosen so you can go on it. F-O-L-K, folk, 60 seconds, starting now.
I assume that when you say folk, the subject is folk music. I used to be really down on that when I was a young comedian, and in fact I used to do a mock song in that vein that went, Rumpty-toodle pina colada, half a pound of muesli. What do you think of Shirley Williams? I want to go to the toilet. But now... In my later years, I now feel that I was a bit too hard on folk because it's quite fashionable now, and I...
Josie, you've challenged
Hesitation.
first. Yes, he ran out of steam. And 30 seconds available, Josie. Tell us something about folk, starting now.
I rather like folk music. I used to go to a folk place where they would sing songs. Usually it goes back to the oldie-worldy times where they remember a long-lost love. My favourite ditty is She Moved Through the Fair, and I used to be able to sing it myself, but now I can't reach the high notes. The trouble is that people always think that it's woolly jumpers, beards, and people with fingers in their ears singing in a kind of nasally way.
Graham challenge.
Repetition of singing.
It's true.
Yes, there was too much singing there.
Yeah.
And Graham, you've got in with half a second to go. And the subject is folk. With you, Graham, another point, of course. Half a second, starting now.
Folk.
So Graham Norton, speaking as a whistle when, again that extra point. He's leapt forward, but he's only just ahead of Alexei Sayle, just behind Josie Lawrence, who's 1 point behind our leader, Paul Merton. And Graham, we're back with you to begin. The subject, daytime television. 60 seconds, starting now.
Daytime television has been transformed recently, ladies and gentlemen. So many brilliant programs. Now, you are Radio 4 listeners, so you're probably busy during the lighting days of the week. But let me explain what you can enjoy. There's a brilliant new thing called Judge Rinder. He is not that thing. He's actually a lawyer, but because it's television, he can claim to be the job with the wig and the mallet. And it's not really called that, but whatever it is. Oh, no, I can't remember. So he does that. Then there's another thing with pennies.
Josie challenge.
I'm afraid repetition of things.
There was a lot
another
of
thing,
things.
yes.
A lot of things.
What is that thing? A gavel.
Gavel.
Yes. Judge Rinder, yes, very good, yes.
Do you watch Judge Rinder?
Oh, I think he's very good.
We should go on someday.
Yeah.
I haven't got any misdemeanors to reveal. 21 seconds are still available, Josie. Daytime television starting now.
You know, when I'm having a particularly lazy day, especially in the winter months, I become a real couch potato and spend the time watching daytime TV. My favourites are, yes, that Kyle man that makes everybody look at him and shouts and does lie detectors. And then there's another programme.
So Josie Lawrence was then speaking as the whistle went, gained that extra point, and she's now taken the lead at the end of that round. And Paul, it's your turn to begin. The subject is a day at the zoo. 60 seconds starting now.
A day at the zoo, so many animals to see. Antelopes, zebras, everything in between. Lions, tigers, elephants, anteaters, giraffes, rhinos, hippos, horses, ponies, cows, that would be a pretty poor zoo, admittedly. Goats, sheep, buzzards, all kinds of different creatures behind cages. It's difficult to go to a zoo and see these poor souls wandering up and down. Inside the giant... trying to look for the word gorilla.
Challenge, right.
Hesitation.
Yes, all right, my love. There are 27 seconds still available. A day at the zoo, starting now.
I was born in Dudley in the West Midlands, and that has a very, very famous... Oh! I'm going to say Dudley Zoo quickly to get a little plug in.
Your challenge,
the
Paul?
zoo.
Yeah, repetition of very,
Yes,
very,
you
very,
said very. Right, Paul, you've got the subject back. 23 seconds available. A day at the zoo starting now.
So I turned to this puma and I said, right, tonight we're going to make our escape. He walks up and down, looks at me, he said, I know what you mean. How are you going over the wall? I said, listen here, son, there's only one way to break out of Whipsnade, and that's a tunnel out. He says, you mean you're not going to adapt yourself into some sort of instrument where you can fly over for evolutionary methods and you can grow wings? No, I said, easy to buy a shovel and dig me way out. And so, as I...
So Paul's delightful fantasy took him to the whistle, gained an extra point. He's now equal in the lead with Josie Lawrence, and they're both just a way ahead of Graham Norton and Alexei Sayle in that order. And Josie, we're back with you to begin, and the subject is Wimbledon Common. Tell us something about that subject in this game, if you can, starting now.
I've never been to Wimbledon Common, but from those two words I can deduce that it's a common in Wimbledon. The only reason I know of Wimbledon Common is because of a lady called Elizabeth Beresford, who used to take her daughter walking there, and this little girl would say Wimbledon Common instead. That gave the lady an idea to create these furry creatures that lived on Wimbledon Common.
Alexei, you challenged.
Repetition of lady.
Yes.
Oh, did I say lady twice?
Yes, you did. Well listened, Alexei. Got another point, and you've got 36 seconds if you need it on Wimbledon Common, starting now.
I am vaguely sorry that I buzzed.
Well, it wasn't hesitation.
I know, but he's only played it once before.
No,
It's a bit sharp. So
Yeah.
Paul should have a point because that was a correct challenge. But Alexei, we leave it with you, and you've got Wimbledon Common and 31 seconds starting now.
I feel that I am,
Deja vu.
Can I play on that ingenue role a bit more? And,
It's up to Graham because he challenged
Yeah,
first.
It was hesitation, but no, good, keep going.
No, well,
I've got nothing to say Wimbledon Common either. So.
No, it's only fine. I'll do what I did with Paul. Give you the point for a correct challenge.
Yes.
Leave it with Alexei, and there are 26 seconds starting now.
Wimbledon Common is also a place that I know nothing about. The tennis obviously occurs in the area, but also the things that happen are trees grow, people walk, dogs, lovers kiss and walk hand in hand.
And Josie challenged.
Repetition of walk.
They walk with too much walking, yes. So, Josie, yes, correct challenge. And you have 12 seconds. You tell us something about Wimbledon Common, starting now.
I imagine that the place is very tidy because of the Wombles, whose names were Origamo, Cousin Tarantino.
Graham challenge.
Well, no, that's just silly talk. Deviation.
Yes, they weren't the names of the
No, they
Wombles.
weren't.
No.
No.
So, Graham, you've got him with 3 seconds to go on Wimbledon Common, starting now.
I have been to Wimbledon Common, and let me tell...
So, at the end of that round, Graham Norton, speaking as a whistle went, he's catching up on our two leaders, Paul Merton and Josie Lonzo, equal in the lead. And, Alexei, it's your turn to begin. The subject we've got now, raising a laugh. Thing you've been doing all your life. But talk about it if you can. 60 seconds starting now.
Raising a laugh is the job description of what comedians do. And people often ask if those of us in our profession are sad or we're happy. And I say, well, it varies, really. But there is a tremendous feeling of esprit de corps between comedians, which is... I thought you were going to buzz me because I...
So, Paul, you challenge first.
Hesitation.
Yes, 36 seconds, raising a laugh, starting now.
In the 1950s, there was a radio series called Ted Ray, and it was called Raise a Laugh, and indeed it did at the time. Raising a laugh, as Alexei said, is something that's very instrumental in a comedian's ability to transform an audience from a group of people into one collective animal that is sensing the comedic undercurrents that we are rising upon as we try and extrapolate the difference between a Spaniard riding a horse and a spanner inside an allotment. Can the two things be compared? Only if you conjure up the very spirit of comedy, none other than the magnificent Nicholas Parsons.
So, Paul speaking as the whistle went, and you're one ahead of all the rest in the lead. And Graham, it's your turn to begin. The subject is, strange one this, physics for beginners. I don't know how you'd take that one, but anyway, you've got 60 seconds if you wanted, starting now.
Curse ye gods that I have only 60 short seconds to tell you everything I know about physics for beginners. Do you know right now there's a virtual tornado of ideas swirling around?
Alexei, challenge.
You said no twice.
Yes.
Oh.
Well, listen,
No.
Alexei. No, well done. Well done.
I
Correct
feel
challenge.
awful about it.
Because Alexei came
Yeah,
in.
it's a poison chalice, isn't it? No, you want to show off and buzz because you've been paying attention and you want Nicholas to like you, but you want his approval. But on the other hand, you've then got to talk about physics for beginners.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Do I look like the science type?
You've got a correct challenge, and you've got 44 seconds. You tell us something about physics for beginners, starting now.
Well, I know very little about physics for beginners, but luckily I was a very badly behaved schoolboy, and one of the punishments I had to do was to write out Boyle's Law, which is part of physics for beginners. And Boyle's, I can...
Oh, Josie, challenge.
Repetition of Boyle's, I'm afraid.
Yes. He actually hadn't quite got the boils out before you challenged.
I think he was going to say Boyle's.
He was going to say boils, but you can't have anticipatory challenges in this game, really. So,
I thought that should be a crime series. Boyle's Law. If it doesn't exist in the laboratory, it don't exist on the street. Sorry, that's just my own thing.
All right. I think, to be fair to Alexei, he hadn't got it out.
Okay.
No. He's tried everything else.
To be fair to Alexei, yeah. He hadn't.
So, Alexei, we get the benefit of the doubt. A point to you, and 30 seconds still available. Physics for beginners, starting now.
That physics law that Josie buzzed on before, I've said it.
Paul,
You
challenge.
did say Boyle's Law before, so you repeated law.
Oh.
Sadly.
Oh, you're clever. Clever man, Merton.
You wait till you hear me talking about physics, you'll see how clever I am.
Well, anyway, that was a correct challenge. 25 seconds, Paul, with you. Physics for beginners, starting now.
A plus B equals X, and there's nothing you can do about it. Look at C, K, half of chicken perhaps, but if you try and put it into a physical capacity, you'll soon realise that the atoms that surround us in the universe are made up of three things: neutrons, protons, semolina. Without those three Oh, stop me, please.
All right.
Right, they ain't taking notes down the front.
Repetition of 3.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Totally.
7 seconds are still available, Graham. You'll tell us more about physics for beginners, starting now.
It is regretful to me that the subject isn't advanced physics, because, of course, that's really my area of expertise. Quite know how to...
And we're going into the final round, aren't we?
Oh.
Yes.
Taxi.
And as we do, Alexei Sayle, who's only played the game once before, he's lingering a little, but only a little, in fourth place, just behind Graham Norton, who's 2 or 3 points behind Josie Lawrence, who's only 1 point behind Paul Merton, and it's Paul's turn to begin. And the subject is My First Love. Oh, what a romantic subject to finish on. 60 seconds, Paul, if you need it, starting now.
I suppose my first love is very difficult to talk about. It was at a holiday camp. There was a donkey derby. There was a young girl sitting upon the mountain. You know, there hasn't been a day gone by I haven't thought of that donkey. Now, you see, I repeated that. Just for the sake of the joke, I repeated donkey twice. I shouldn't have done. I should have carried on.
So, Josie, your challenge.
Repetition of donkey.
Yes, that's right. So we've got 48 seconds still available. My First Love, starting now.
Do you know, I think I already may have mentioned this on Just a Minute before, but...
Paul, challenge.
Repetition.
Paul, what we do there is give you a bonus point because we enjoyed what you said, but it wasn't actually within the rules of Just a Minute. So Josie gets a point for being interrupted, and she has 45 seconds for My First Love, starting now.
Yeah, I was 6 3/4. His name was Kenneth Barnsley, and he bought me a purse that was blue leather on one side and red suede on the other. We met at Stephen Atwell's party playing a game where a balloon had to be put between each other's heads. And Eleanor burst it with a pin, and we touched cheeks, and that was my first sort of kiss. There was something about his smooth skin and big hair that I...
Paul challenge.
We have skin before?
No.
No, I was thinking of something else.
Josie, an incorrect challenge. 18 seconds available. My first to love starting now.
He was the cleverest little chap in the class, and I admired him so much. But then Deborah came along with her fancy ways and a uniform, which you didn't have to wear, by the way, but she bloomin' did. And off he went. I was broken heart.
So, let me give you the final score. Alexei Sayle, who's only played the game once before, finished in an excellent fourth place. No, it was a very good one. And Graham Norton was just ahead of you with about 10 points. And then came Paul Merton. But 2 points ahead of Paul Merton was Josie Lawrence. So we say, Josie, you are the winner this week. It only remains me to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Paul Merton, Josie Lawrence, Alexei Sayle and Graham Norton. We thank our producer, Victoria Lloyd. I'm indebted here to Halley Sterling, who's helped me with the score and blown the whistle so delicately. And we're indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. From the audience, from me, Nicholas Parsons, from the team, goodbye. Tune in again when we next play Just a Minute. Welcome to Just a Minute. Nicholas Parsons, and as the minute waltz fades away, once more it's my huge pleasure to welcome our many listeners, not only in this country, but around the world, but also to welcome to the programme 4 exciting, dynamic personalities who are going to play Just a Minute. And they are, seated on my right, Paul Merton and Josh Widdicombe, and seated on my left, Holly Walsh and Marcus Brigstock. Please welcome all 4 of them. Beside me is Halley Sterling. She's going to help me with the score. She's going to blow the whistle when the 60 seconds have elapsed. And as usual, I'm going to ask them for at different times to speak on a subject that I give them, and they will try and do that without hesitation, repetition, or deviation. And we begin the show this week with Paul Merton. Paul, rock and roll. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
In the 1960s, when the Beatles played the Cavern, I used to work on the door. In those days, rock and roll meant Little Richard, Buddy Holly, Nicholas Parsons, who worked under the name of the Prince of Darkness. His first single was called Rock and Roll Cravat, and it came from his eponymous debut LP, which was dedicated to Satan. It was called Hello, I Don't Think We've Been Properly Introduced. Nicky's role in rock and roll was extraordinary. He invented a new genre. It was the opposite of easy listening. It was bloody hard work. The Academy of Rock and Roll Giants in America decided to recognise his contribution to popular entertainment by offering him a job as a cleaner. It's his task to go round every night hoovering Fleetwood Mac, or at least the statues of them, Macabilk, the Mamas and the Papas, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and it's not a bad task for
a justifiable round of applause like that. Well, that doesn't often happen in Just a Minute. Someone begins with a subject, finishes with it, and starts the show with it. Paul, that was delightful and fascinating, and you get a point because you were not interrupted, and you get a point for speaking when the whistle went. So you've got 2 points, and you're the only one to have scored at this particular point of the show. Holly, will you take the next round? The subject is upside-down cake. Tell us something about that in this game, starting now.
An upside-down cake is a particular brand of bakery substance whereby a cake tin is used to produce a cake with a pineapple or other fruit at the base. The first time I ever had an upside-down cake, I remember, was when I went to visit my parents' friends down in Worthing. They'd recently moved from Guildford because they felt that it was too dangerous and horrible there and wanted a slow death on the south coast. And then my time eating this cake, I remember thinking, I will never recover from such a revolting and disgusting piece of confectionery.
Marcus, you challenged.
Yeah, there was a hesitation there.
There was a hesitation, but you went for 23 seconds. Well done. Was it 23 seconds? No. You went for 37 seconds. There's 23 seconds left. And Marcus, they're yours if you want them. And the subject is upside-down cake. You've got a point there, of course, for a correct challenge. And you start now.
Baking an upside-down cake is much easier in Australia, where they're already upside down. If you attempt it in this country, you have to do a handstand and push all of the ingredients up towards the oven and then smear the fruity layer underneath the doughy substance that you've introduced towards it. This is not fun, I have to tell you. I've baked one upside-down cake.
So Marcus Brigstock was then speaking as the whistle went, and he gained an extra point for doing so. And for the other one in the round, he's now equal with Paul Merton in the lead. They both got 2. And Josh, we're with you. Would you like to take the next subject? It's the Canary Islands.
The Canary Islands?
Canary Islands, yes. 60 seconds starting now.
The rain in Spain falls only on the plain, I've been told. However, I do not know this as a fact, because my family holidays were only in the United Kingdom. I'd have loved to have gone to the Canary Islands, but instead, one year we went to Pembroke, and then the following year we broadened our horizons by going to Pembrokeshire.
Holly challenge.
Oh, is that repetition of year?
Yes, she did 1 year, and then the following year.
Sorry.
No,
Well,
fair
listen,
enough.
Holly, yes? You get a...
Can I say it didn't go down popular with the audience, though, did it?
Right, anyway, Holly, it was a correct challenge. You have 42 seconds available. The Canary Islands are starting now.
I am not going to go for the sympathy vote and tell you that I have never been to an exotic place, because I went on the worst holiday of my life to La Gomera. If you don't know it, it's basically a volcano in the middle of the sea where I went with my boyfriend. We'd only been going out for 2 months and we wanted to split up the second day we arrived, but we were stuck in this resort for the next 2 weeks, and by the end...
Josh challenge.
Repetition of 2.
Yes. You went
2 months and 2 weeks.
Touché!
Right, Josh, you've got a correct challenge. You have another point. You have 21 seconds. The Canary Islands are starting now.
The only time I ever get to experience the Canary Islands are via my favourite type of... I knew I'd done
Marcus
that.
challenged.
Yeah, a bit of a hesitation.
There was a bit of a hesitation. So, Marcus, you have a correct challenge. You have a point. You have 15 seconds. The Canary Islands are starting now.
The Canary Islands are fantastically useful. If you take them down into a mine and they pass out, you know that it's not safe for other islands to be taken down there. That is the primary function.
Paul challenged.
Do we have a repetition of take them down?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Well, you took him down.
Double takedown.
So, Paul, you got in with a correct challenge, a point to you, and there are 5 seconds available still. The Canary Islands are starting now.
As I swam towards a distant land, I realised it was the Canaries on the horizon. I would be there before breakfast.
So, Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went. And he's taken the lead at the end of the round. And Marcus, we'd like you to begin the next round. And the subject is the Doomsday Book. Tell us something about that historical subject in this game, starting now.
I used to refer to my address book as the Doomsday Book, and I would put a little cross by the people that I planned to blow up on Doomsday, as I called it, which was usually a Monday. I have run out.
Josh, you challenge.
Hesitation.
Yeah, we call that hesitation.
Only a very slight one, I think.
Yeah, but you had somebody over then for a slight one.
No, it was a massive one.
No.
I was being silly.
No, it was slight.
Sorry.
Right. So, Josh, you have 46 seconds, and it's the Doomsday Book starting now.
Apparently, the Doomsday Book is very popular, but when I worked in Waterstones, it never troubled the top 40. Dan Brown would be there week after month after year. But...
Marcus down.
Do you know, the worst thing about that is I was being so smug in my head.
I was going to say you can be clever in this game, but there are all kinds of little areas where you trip yourself up. So, Marcus, your challenge?
Yes, a repetition of after.
Yes, there were too many afters. And,
It was only a slight repetition.
but a very positive one. Right, Marcus, Correct challenge, a point, 35 seconds available. The Doomsday Book starting now.
Spoiler alert, the Doomsday Book ends with Zachary. That's how the book I read finished, in any case. It is a fascinating tale. It's really just a list of old people.
Poor challenge.
A bit of a hesitation there.
A definite one.
A whopper, I thought.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. So, Paul, you tell us something about the Doomsday Book, and there are 21 seconds available, starting now.
As my grandfather lay on his deathbed, he pointed towards the bookcase in the corner of the room. His wavering fingers indicated the volume I should pick up. He uttered the words, page 235. Eagerly, I flicked through the equally large pieces of paper that were in front of me, and I thought to myself, here it is at last, the family secret.
So Paul Merton was then speaking as a whistle went and gained an extra point as he increased his lead. What was going to happen then, Paul? I'm fascinated to know.
I don't know. That's the joy of it.
Right. Paul, we're back with you to begin.
Oh, yes.
And the subject is, very educational, going nuclear. Very pompous subject, but we'll talk about it if you want. 60 seconds starting now.
If you travel on the Romney, Hythe and Dymchurch Railway down in Kent, it finishes up at Dungeness, which is a nuclear power station, and lots of people since the 1950s have worried about the security of nuclear power, going nuclear, in fact. I was filming...
Marcus challenge.
Yes, it's a repetition of power.
Oh, yes, indeed. Well, listen, Marcus. A point to you. And 45 seconds are still available. Going nuclear, starting now.
Going nuclear is losing your temper, and I tell you what, if I don't make it to the end of this minute, because one of this lot buzzes in suddenly...
Paul Chandler.
I couldn't resist the temptation. I want to see Marcus go nuclear.
You're right, OK.
Indoor fireworks.
Well, Paul, we give you a bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. But, Marcus, can you respond to that before you continue?
Well, this is Radio 4, so I'm going to send you a very strongly worded letter.
All right. Anyway, an incorrect challenge.
That's less nuclear and more hot air.
Yes. Right. Marcus, there is 36 seconds available. Going nuclear, starting now.
Going nuclear is something that some of the British government want us to do by renewing Trident. I'm not convinced it's a great idea. Why don't we just tell people we've got them and spend the money on a carnival or parade? They're always fun, aren't they, with elephants and stuff? I think that going nuclear might be dangerous. That's one of the reasons why I've never done it, domestically speaking. That and the fact that I haven't got enough plug sockets. You never have, do you, for those sorts of things? I imagine...
Right, Holly? Challenge, yes?
It's like you sort of went Cockney during
I did,
that.
yeah. I used the word those.
Those sort of things. So I was just... I don't know whether that's deviation.
What is your challenge, my darling?
Deviation.
Deviation from what?
From his normal way of speaking.
Yeah.
There's nothing in the rules which says you can't change your speech or your challenge or your grammar.
Paul did the first
halfway
round
through.
purely in Liverpudlian. No one buzzed that.
No, sorry.
Well, it wasn't that pure. Dear BBC, are you taking the piss out of our Scousers?
No, I can't allow that one, Holly, as much as I'd like to. But he did change his direction, but it's not within the rules. You've got to change your speech or pattern or interrupt or something like that. So an incorrect challenge, Marcus. Another point to you, and there are 8 seconds available. Going nuclear, starting now.
Well, I'll try my best to be consistent in this last remaining few seconds as I discussed going nuclear, which I once done in Devon. Oh, it was exhausting.
Now, if we challenged on and accepted the fact that people changed their vocal intonations or their accents as we went through, we'd never get anywhere. Marcus, you were speaking as a whistle when gained an extra point, and you've taken the lead one ahead of Paul Merton and Josh. We're back with you to begin, and the subject is sellotape. Tell us something about that useful product in this game, starting now.
People often ask me how I keep my boxing gloves on when I'm practicing. in my new sport, and I tell them it's with sellotape, which is my favourite fixer of any of them. Masking tape can say goodbye. Sellotape is where it's at. At Christmas, I love nothing more than to wrap a present, cutting the pieces of sellotape into small bits as I prepare to fold the paper. However, the problem came recently when my sellotape dispenser became blunt. Oh, you can sharpen scissors, but how do you sharpen a sellotape?
All right, Marcus challenge.
Yeah, repetition of sharpen.
Yes, you sharpened too much, but you did
Also,
go...
that was one of the most boring things I've ever heard in my life.
I'll have you know, when I said my sellotape dispenser was blunt, there was an intake of breath from the audience.
Yeah. It was dramatic. It was the way you sold it. It was dramatic.
I think some of
We
them
can
were
see the
living
image.
that experience with you.
Yeah, we were living it. We were living it.
Yeah. And there are 27 seconds markers on sellotape starting now.
Only one side of it is sticky. A lot of people come undone where that's...
Holly challenge.
Actually, it depends if you've got double-sided sticky tape, sellotape.
Yes, sir.
I've never heard so much rubbish on the subject in my life.
Also, can I just say that's one of the most boring things I've ever heard.
But this is sellotape. That's famously...
Yeah, you can get double-sided sellotape.
No, that's double-sided sticky tape. Oh. The people at Cello Towers are not going to thank you.
No. Lord Sellotape himself.
I don't think you get double-sided sellotape, but I tell you what, we'll leave this to the superior judgment of the audience, which I very occasionally do. If you believe that Holly's right, will you cheer for Holly, and if not, you boo for Marcus, and you all do it together now. Good Lord, they'll have us out of the street in a minute, rare. Holly, you have the subject still, and you have a point. Sellotape. 23 seconds, starting now.
I'm now under great pressure to make sellotape quite exciting, so...
Paul, challenge.
Don't feel there's any pressure at all.
So have you got a challenge within the rules of just a minute, Paul?
No, I haven't. I was just making encouraging noises. No, I haven't got a challenge. You're right.
I don't think they were funny enough for me to give you a bonus point.
No.
So,
Certainly not. No.
So, Holly, incorrect challenge. You have a point. 17 seconds. Sellotape starting now.
Sellotape can be absolutely thrilling. When used in a captive situation, you can take the person that you've kidnapped and...
Josh challenge.
She hesitated.
Yes, Josh, you've got a correct challenge. You have another point. And there are 9 seconds available. Sellotape starting now.
If you were to ask me the most exciting anecdote I've got about sellotape...
Paul challenge.
What is the most exciting anecdote that you've got about sellotape?
So give Paul bonus point because we enjoyed the interruption. You get a point because you were interrupted, Josh. And you keep the subject or sellotape, and there are only 4 seconds available. Starting
a bit quick,
now.
I would tell you the story lasts 7 to 8 seconds, which is a real problem.
So Josh Whittaker, but then speaking as the whistle went in, he has moved forward. He's still in 3rd place, but he has moved. And now we're back with Marcus Brigstock to begin, and the lovely gentle subject here, an English country garden. Marcus, tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
English country gardens are famed throughout the world for being beautiful and mainly filled with lavender. If you walk on the grass, people shout at you. Also, picnics are prohibited and frolicking in the shallow end. I may be slightly confused about what's strictly permitted within an English country garden. There's a song devoted to it, but I can't sing it because it's repetitive. That's a...
Holly, challenge.
There's another song that isn't repetitive about English country gardens.
Oh, well, I'll have a go at that one then.
So, Holly, what is your challenge within the rules of just a minute?
I think there is a song about it that isn't. The song about it
flowers,
isn't.
isn't it? It's
Oh, no, I know
hollyhocks
it.
and diddle-diddle.
Oh, I know another one.
There's three songs called an English country garden.
Marcus didn't establish there was only one song. He just said there is a song, didn't he? There's a song about an English country garden. There's probably more than one, as you said. Oh,
Did you hear Crossrail going underneath then?
So, Marcus, you have the benefit of the doubt. Incorrect challenge. Another point. An English country garden starting now.
Pull down your pants and do it on the ants. That's at least one of the lines that I remember from the last time.
Holly, challenge.
It's actually suffocate the ants.
Oh, right. Well, different rules at my school.
All right, Holly, correct challenge. 30 seconds available. You tell us something about an English country garden, starting now.
The first line of that song is, "What do you do if you need a poo?" And I'm happy to sing that if somebody wants it as their ringtone. I myself am a massive fan of English country gardens because I enjoy nothing more than running through the green grass, looking up at the blossom and loving the fact that I was born in such a beautiful and wonderful country as England. But it is a great thing that we all have inherited as part of our culture, that the landscape...
So Holly Walsh will then speak as the whistle went again, that extra point. And she's now equal with Josh Widdicombe in second place. And they are both behind Paul Merton and Marcus Brigstock, who are equal in the lead. As we move to Paul again to begin. The Grand Tour is the subject, Paul. Tell us something about that subject in this game, starting now.
The Grand Tour became popular in the mid-17th century as people, very well-educated folk, would go on these trips to France and Italy, visit Venice, try and soak up the culture of the Renaissance. Lord Malmesbury went there, first of all, in 1684 with his butler Shivers. The two of them looked out across the Mediterranean as the boats came towards them. Each one of those vessels was commanded by a strong Protestant by the name of Jack Roberts. His name echoed for our name twice.
So, Marcus, you challenge, yes?
Yes, name twice.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're absolutely right. So the 29 seconds still available. Marcus, you just tell us something about the Grand Tour, starting now.
The Grand Tour is priced slightly differently from the Mediocre Tour, which I think represents much better value. That's the one that I went on, and it was very, very...
Josh.
Repetition of very.
Yes, and you were listening well, and you got him on. With 19 seconds to go, Josh, the Grand Tour, tell us something about it now.
I've been on a grand tour of Pembrokeshire, but I don't like to go on about it. We visited the nuclear power station, the beaches, and also the cream tea emporiums. But the big question there was, which order do you put the jam on the scone?
Marcus, challenge.
Deviation, it's scone.
I don't think it is.
OK. What's the fastest cake in the world? Scone. It's always scone. Otherwise, the joke doesn't work. What's the fastest cake in the world? Scone.
I think I'm going to stick my neck out here and say, I think if you live in Scotland, you say scones, and if you live in England, you say scones.
Yep.
What, you say in the English? No, I can't.
I think if you live in Surrey, you say scone. That's as well.
I think if you like jokes, you say
as someone who's partly Scottish, I certainly approve of the pronunciation scone.
There are some times that Radio 4 becomes a pastiche of itself, aren't there?
Deviation from the English language.
Why? What did he say?
He said scone.
Well, how did you know what I meant?
Well, I've known you a while, Josh, and I've seen you put jam and cream on many things.
But never a scone.
Never once.
Never once.
Never once.
Well, I think what's happening here is that we accept that scone is wrong and scone is right.
Yes.
But people colloquially do talk about scones in the ignorant English part of the country. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm getting myself in a terrible muddle.
I'll tell you where you're not going, and that's on holiday in Britain.
I think, I don't know who challenged that, but Marcus challenged that.
Yeah.
I think, in view of the fact that people do colloquially talk about scones when they shouldn't, we will say that it was an incorrect challenge.
Right.
And we leave it with Josh. And the Grand Tour is with you, Josh, still. 4 seconds starting now.
I hate it when you go to someone's...
Marcus challenged.
Yeah, what are you doing having a cream tea in Pembrokeshire? That's a Devon or Cornwall thing.
Yeah, but I'm from...
Surely it's Pembrokeshire.
Well done, Paul. We're not going to charge any points on that and say, Josh, it's still with you. 3 seconds, the Grand Tour starting now.
At someone's house, they'll say to you, do you want...
Oh, we're moving into the last round.
Oh.
I'll give you the situation as we do. Holly, who hasn't played as often as the others, she's in fourth place, which is very good fourth place. She's only 2 or 3 points behind Josh Widdicombe. Josh is equal in second place with Paul Merton, and they are 2 points behind Marcus Brigstock, who's just in the lead. Ooh! And we've got an incredible subject now. Holly, it's your turn to begin, so do your best with onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia what?
Onomatopoeia.
Oh, is that some sort of substance?
60 seconds are available, Holly, starting now.
Onomatopoeia is a word that sounds like a slur.
Yeah. Marcus, yes.
Yeah, hesitation.
Definitely. So you've got another point, and you have 54 seconds. Tell us something about onomatopoeia, starting now.
Boom, tick, whack. These words are all onomatopoeic, which means that they sound like the thing that they are. I'd like to remember some more, but I can't. So,
Paul, challenge.
Hissing.
Huh?
Hissing.
yes.
Hissing, yeah.
There's one.
But you didn't have the subject, actually,
No, you
Paul.
couldn't think of any more. I was helping out again from the sidelines.
So have you got a challenge when the rules are just a minute?
Yeah, hesitation.
Right.
I don't think he hesitated.
I don't think he hesitated.
No, I don't think he hesitated.
No, right. So an incorrect challenge.
Yeah.
There are 46 seconds still available, Marcus. Onomatopoeia starting now.
Onomatopoeic words are probably my favourites in the English language. My best ones are all filthy, though, so I can't very well say them here. I am now stuck. You know, there's such a thing. If you start talking about things that you can't say, they're the only things you can think of.
Yes.
And then you can't say them, and then you find you can't say anything at all.
So, Paul,
I can't think of any rude ones.
I can think of one, but both my children are here, and there's a young lad on the front row as well.
They can Google it.
Paul, you had a correct challenge.
Yes, hesitation, yes.
And you've got 36 seconds. You tell us something about onomatopoeia starting now.
There was this substance called pier that was like Hessian, and there was a mat that was made of it, and my father said, "Get on this mat of pier here." And we rose up towards the ceiling as this magic carpet flew us out of the window. As I looked down at the metropolis beneath us, I could see 27 Sebastopol Terrace, where my arch enemy, Sparky the Wonder Dog, lived. This was no longer going to be a match for me.
Marcus, challenge.
Slight deviation from...
Yes. I'm proud to say I completely forgot what the subject was. Totally
A definite
off the point.
deviation,
Totally.
but utterly enjoyable. So I think we give you a bonus point, Paul, for what you did, what you contributed. Marcus gets a point for a correct challenge, and there are 12 seconds still available. Marcus, onomatopoeia starting now.
It's a shame that onomatopoeia itself doesn't sound like the word that it's meant to also resemble.
Paul, challenge.
Did we have word before?
Yes, you did.
Yeah.
You talked about the word before, yes. So Paul,
so
you've got
glad you
in,
buzzed in. I get
and it's getting
nothing.
very close now. And there are 6 seconds still available, Paul. Onomatopoeia starting now.
As I removed my trousers around my ankles, I realised it was an ideal opportunity to make an onomatopoeic noise.
So Paul Merton was then speaking as the whistle went and gained that extra point for doing so. So let me give you the final score. Holly, who hasn't played the game as much as the others, did brilliantly, but came in 4th place. And so you obviously have the audience with you, Paul. She was only 3 points behind Josh Widdicombe, who was again fairly new to the game. And now, out in the lead, we had 2 who swapped it back and forth, Paul Merton and Marcus Brigstock. And in the end, Marcus got 2 points more than Paul Merton. So we say, Marcus Brigstock, you are our winner this week. So we do hope you've enjoyed this edition of Just a Minute. And then it remains to say thank you to these 4 fine players of the game, Marcus Brigstock, Holly Walsh, Paul Merton and Josh Widdicombe. I thank Hayley Sterling, who's helped me with the score, blown her whistle with such style. We thank our audience here. We're indebted to Victoria Lloyd, who produced the show, and we're deeply indebted to Ian Messiter, who created this amazing game. So from them, from me, Nicholas Parsons, and this audience here, goodbye. Tune in again the same time when we play Just a Minute!